Hello, everyone. Welcome to another exciting mini marathon. It's me, Captain Logan, and joining me, as always, is Austin, TheDayGhost.
Spork.
And our special guest for the evening is the only other person on the planet that loves the tick as much as me. It's the Geoff.
Salad shooter.
Tongues.
We'll get it right one of these times.
So, the last time Geoff was here, we did the third season of The Simpsons, and we actually haven't done a Simpsons show since then. I just haven't had time to get notes taken for that fourth season, but we will get to that. That is happening.
That is true.
And it's good to have you back again, Geoff.
That is also true.
It's good to have you back for the first time in a long time, Geoff.
Good to be there.
Thanks for doing this. Geoff and I, for a long time, have been talking about doing a series, or for a while, we even talked about a separate channel on this show and other Tick material, and that has not come to fruition. So finally, we're doing something on the Tick again. And I have covered this show in various ways over the years and years I've been doing the YouTube channel, because sometimes I get self-indulgent. I just want to talk about what I want to talk about. And there's not a ton of interest in the Tick, which partially explains why one of the greatest live-action TV shows of all time got canceled a couple of years ago, and I'm still not over it. But I've done rewinds on this show, and Geoff and I have done at least one, if not a couple of videos just kind of shooting the breeze about the animated Tick. We've never done commentaries on this, somehow or rather, and so Geoff and I tonight split up the duties in picking episodes. We didn't let Austin have a choice because Austin doesn't know the show as well as we do, and because, frankly, I don't care what he wants to watch.
You have no choice.
No, honestly, I didn't figure you knew the show well enough to pick.
That's okay. I'll go get some handcuffs and wear them for the show.
Austin, I didn't think to ask you. Was there anything in particular that you were really hoping we would show?
Every episode that was not on the list. So.
Oh, okay. So you just hate these 6. The other 30
yeah.
are your favorites. Well, you don't have any taste.
Those are kind of the weaker ones.
Because at that point, you've got the stupid Mr. Mental Baby, which is the worst thing ever, and not just in this, but ever. And then you've got like Tick versus Prehistory, which is not great, and Time Commandos, which is not great. Like your favorite episodes are crap, and apparently one of your favorite episodes is also crap.
Yeah, but I still like them more than the Insidious 6 episodes that you guys picked. So
we're not doing 90s. Spider-Man. That's not the show.
You picked 6, and they're all Insidious.
Oh, I thought you were doing like a joke, like a thing.
It was a pick 6.
I don't know what that means.
That's okay.
Is that a thing? All right. These are the jokes tonight, folks. Anyway, thanks a lot for joining us live. If you're doing that, thanks for watching after the fact. If you're doing that instead, we're going to go ahead and get right into it here in a couple of minutes. The list of episodes that we're watching tonight is in the description, and you can watch Animated Tick these days on Hulu, which is really cool. There's finally a place to stream the show. There are a couple of YouTube channels that have really decent transfers. I didn't put a link to those in the description, but on YouTube, search out Stargazer. That guy's got really good transfers, and that's how I was watching the show a lot before it finally went to Hulu, and Hulu's got all of it as opposed to the discs where the first 2 seasons were released. They didn't do well enough, apparently, to release a 3rd season, and there's an episode missing from each of those box sets. I think everything we're doing tonight is weirdly on those sets, and we didn't plan that out. We ended up not picking anything from 3 at all tonight. What's that?
I was careful to avoid.
Oh, really?
The ones that were left off.
I was not, because I figure the majority of people that would watch this with us don't own it, and would have to watch it some other way anyway. But
well, that's true.
Yeah, but anyway,
I didn't have enough faith.
Oh, okay. Well, I wasn't thinking about that at all, but somehow we ended up not picking anything from 3 either. So yeah, tonight we're going to start with The Tick versus the Tick, which is one of, I think, the quintessential episodes of the show, if you've never seen the show before, to give you a real good sense of just the flavor and what the show's all about. And I also wanted to pick that because it's a Ben Edlund episode and is based directly on one of the original issues in Ben Edlund's run. We're not doing the first Chair Fates episode tonight, which is also one of those. But there aren't very many episodes that are ripped straight out of the comics, and there's a lot of even lines of dialogue in this episode that were right out of that issue. Borneo, sweet Borneo, and stuff like 65 cents for a candy bar, like word for word.
Yeah.
It's that speech. So anyway, we're gonna do that tonight. So that's Barry Hubris, although he's not called Barry Hubris in the show. He's just Barry.
Barry.
And there's a lot of fun stuff in this episode that I think in some ways even improves on that issue. I don't remember if Doorman was in that. I haven't read that in 8 or 10 years since I did Tick Month, all those years ago. But anyway, let's go ahead and get right into it. Make sure that you're watching The Tick versus the Tick on Hulu. It's episode 7. I didn't put episode numbers in the description just because that's going to look different wherever you look. I don't know even what exactly the aired order was with this show, so I'll just tell you what it is on Hulu. So episode 7 of season 1, Tick versus the Tick. Get it rigged up past all the menus and things. If you're watching on disc, get it at timestamp 0 and get ready to press play when I say now. Austin, do you have yours rigged up, man?
We're doing great.
Mine's a little off to the side, so excuse me if I'm not looking exactly at the camera. But
isn't that normal? Is that where you're usually looking, or did you have to?
No, but it's more like even farther.
Oh, okay. Are you in a different house?
No. My setup's weird.
I can never tell where you are because you've always got the chroma thing going on.
I'm in front of my green screen that I live at.
He doesn't have a green screen. You can be really lazy these days with Skype and things. But anyway, let's go ahead and get right into it. Geoff, are you ready, sir?
As always.
It'll be the 900th time each of us has seen this episode, I'm sure. Here we go. Everybody, please press play right now.
Once again, we're here with prominent superheroes, the Tick and Arthur.
Good morning, America.
Hi.
So we only did this silly opening thing with the interview guy twice, and I kind of wish they'd kept doing it because it was always amusing. Never has anything to do with the episode. Could have been put anywhere, really.
Whichever episode needs 60 more seconds.
You think that's probably what it was?
Probably.
I never thought of that. Do you know the other episode?
You can't tell the background.
Tick versus the Idea Men.
It's Idea Men, yeah. Which I always think of as the pilot, but it's really clear watching it that it can't have been the first show that they made. It might have been the first one they aired, I'm actually not sure, but it's pretty obvious Chairface has to be the first thing they actually made. There aren't really special features on this show anywhere. It's hard to get a lot of background information on the show. You have to really dig for stuff.
Picture friend. We know the score.
This is also probably, it just occurs to me, the only other time besides Heroes where the Tick will pick up a camera and talk directly into it, where he's on television. Like, what is even...
Do you dig?
See, I put that in the title of tonight's video because I knew that was coming. That's how well I know this show. So... I think this show has a really underrated, not talked about enough at all, theme song and score in general. The jazzy soundtrack for this is real earwormy and catchy and gets stuck in your head, and again, not just the intro music, which is brilliant.
It really does create a carpet that pulls the show together acoustically, and it just fits so well. It's just serious enough, but not too serious.
Yeah, and because of this, I've always really associated the Tick with just jazz as a sound. And so I really appreciate that the Amazon show did the same thing with it. It's got a different flavor, certainly, but it's still that kind of swingy or big band thing.
Yeah. No, wait.
Daniel Davis, while we were talking about that, said they dropped those intro sequences fast. I mean, they weren't even in a row. Like,
Yeah.
it seemed like a thing they would just do maybe occasionally. And then another silly thing they started doing, I think in season 2, was answering fan mail over credits. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah.
And they would just use footage that they already had for other episodes. They didn't reanimate anything.
Crime fighters.
So yeah, Arthur can afford somehow to keep his apartment, but not to get a car.
Yeah.
And I've never understood, and I think this is just a silly running gag, of course, how Arthur manages to pay bills at all because he doesn't have a job, and he, you know, I don't know how he would be drawing disability or anything. I don't know how he's getting any kind of money. Evil Midnight Bomber is my wife's absolute favorite villain of this entire series.
Right on.
And he never gets, because he's hysterical, and I'm sure that's a direct parody of something that is over my head. I've never fully understood what he is.
He looks like the one guy from Disney's Atlantis.
He's an evil guy who...
That's a few years after this. That's true. Yeah. But he seems like some sort of like 70s movie villain. I feel like there's something in there that I just am not aware of.
He's looking at this doorman guy's head and how geometric it is.
Tick's character model with his face in that shot was very strange. So the idea of superheroes having to be registered and carrying around ID is a thing that we bring back in the Warburton series.
Oh, yeah.
When Tick has no identity and can't just be known as the Tick and changes his name to IP Daily, which is not funny, but is what they did.
That would be that series.
It is nice that the action figure had detail enough to have that, though.
Yeah.
It came with a card that says that. So this is always, of course, one of my favorite episodes of the show for all kinds of reasons. I loved it so much, I got my mom and my stepdad sitting right here to paint that wall in my room.
Yeah.
I don't know if I've ever told you about that, Austin, but yeah, and it's still there. The like comic book words, the Zap and Pow, and all of that is painted on one of the walls in my old high school bedroom.
Oh, it's awesome.
It's his favorite ex-gun-toting vigilante.
Yeah.
Oh, did you notice some of?
I need a grip on.
Did you notice the like tanks and things in the parking lot?
Yeah.
I don't think I'd ever caught that before. Out of the millions of times that I've watched this.
They've all got superhero vehicles.
Every episode of the show is really quotable in some way or another, even the not as good ones. Some of my least favorite episodes have some of my favorite lines. This is one of those. Nearly every line is memorable, and I quote all the time. Put it in the happy box.
You have style, baby.
I believe, and maybe this is just a rumor, I don't remember, I'm going off of like well over a decade memory now, but I believe that when they were planning for a potential season 4 that never happened, we were supposed to give Evil Midnight Bomber his own episode again, finally. He does come back again in cameos, but he never straight up gets another episode all to his own. Or even a major part in any of the villain crossovers. We see him get kicked out of the Enemy Awards.
Right.
And I think there's one other place where we see him too, and it's not coming to me right off. What you got in that poodle gun? Oh.
Among the dumbest questions ever.
This is one of the better Deflator Mouse hitting on chicks bit.
Yeah.
The best one, though, is in the Tick Love Santa.
Made.
You never get better than Field Mouse, step under a missile, make everyone's Christmas.
You had your chance, Janet.
So a lot of the superheroes sitting at this table are in the comics, and they're just in this episode, and we really never see them again, except for Fishboy Lost Prince of Atlantis, who is a character that also shows up in one scene in the Warburton show.
Oh, wow.
And if he had shown up in Amazon, he would have been one of the few characters that was in all 4 incarnations, counting the comics. There are very few of those. Oddly, Thracker's Augie is one now.
Oh, weird. I didn't know he was in the Warburton show. That's the one thing I haven't really seen from this. Well, that and I haven't read the comics. But of the shows.
The Warburton show wasn't allowed to use anything that was made specifically just for this show, which is why they had to reinvent American Made and Deflator Mouse as different characters that are clearly just rip-offs of those characters, but great in their own right. Or at least Batman Well is. Captain Liberty is not as cool, but I think she grew on me as time went on.
She was never going to be as cool as American Made?
No, they did typical sitcom things with her, so she had to be real.
They wasted her potential.
She had to be real uncertain of herself and try to get by on her looks and the way she dressed and all of that, and that's kind of the opposite of what American Made was. But it was also kind of nice that they didn't just make them carbon copies of exactly those characters.
You have to make a different character. Linda actually made a different character.
But the reason they could do Fishboy is because he was in the comics first. So anybody that was there initially, they could do versions of there. And there weren't very many adaptations straight up of things in the comics in that show either. Most stuff was made up, just like it was for this show. But occasionally you get a thing like that. So again, speech that this dog and then the ape are gonna give here are directly out of the comics.
See, if
Almost
I could
word
have
for
a
word.
henchman, I would want a talking orangutan, because that's awesome.
Well, and he's not a henchman; he's a sidekick.
Oh,
Because
sorry,
sidekicks,
sidekick is what I meant.
sidekicks
Sorry.
go to the sidekick lounge.
Yeah.
I love
there's the only human
So
in there.
it would be a henchman for me.
That's true. He is the only human in there, and of course has to be dressed as another animal.
Well, if I had a nickel for every time I've said that.
So the humor sensibility of this show is all about the boring mundanities of life, and what makes it fun and hilarious is taking those things and putting them in a superhero world where things should ostensibly be more heightened and out there and all about adventure and stuff. And those things are there, but it's also here's what real life would sort of kind of be like, between the raindrops. And so it allows you to do fun things like having all the politics with a nightclub that you'd have in real life of, like cliques, and these are the important people, and we basically say the superheroes are like the rich players, and you've got this underclass that's sort of allowed to be around, but they can't actually get in the club, and that's the sidekicks. It's hilarious that there's politics.
He was in... The other episode he was in was the other episode to have that interview beginning.
That's right. Or at least that was the other episode before this. He shows
Total
up.
non sequitur.
Oh, you're fine. He shows up quite frequently, actually. Big Shot. he gets at least 4 or 5 appearances. He comes back in Dot and Neil's wedding as the photographer.
That's right. That's perfect.
Austin, he turns in his gun and he becomes a photographer and he runs around the wedding going, "Freeze!" And he takes pictures of people and then they freak out like they've got guns pointed at them, and it's the best.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I was thinking that character is in the first episode where he's just like running around crazy with his guns. I forgot he was in this one.
Yep. And he shoots, and obviously Punisher parody, and he would shoot his logo into signs everywhere.
Yeah, because in the first episode, like 40% of the runtime is just like different superheroes showing up to be like, "Oh, we'll take care of it."
Captain Lemming.
Yeah, I don't think he ever comes back. You do see Bipolar Bear one time. Do you know where he is?
No.
Bipolar Bear shows up in... I'm just going to do nothing but reference other episodes. Bipolar Bear shows up again in the intro for Heroes.
That's right.
There's a lot of cool little cameos all over Heroes.
The Tick.
Oh, he's got it all worked out. I love how generic so many of these superheroes are.
I like how, Street Urchin, I think his name is. He's got like a
Sewer Urchin.
Rain Man voice.
We're going to have to teach you about the Tick. He's Sewer Urchin.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. He's got like a Rain Man voice.
Yep.
It's great.
I think the least generic outfits with the superheroes are Doorman, who works here, and the other Tick, who is not actually a superhero. Which is funny. When he's fighting the Tick. It's very confusing. There are 2 episodes of the first season that easily could have been called The Tick versus the Tick, and when I was a kid, I tended to get them confused, because Tick versus Uncommon Cold,
Oh, yeah.
he also fights another Tick.
Yeah, because it's like the green Tick, right?
The Mucus Tick, yeah. Which I nearly picked, because Thrakkerzog is my absolute favorite Tick villain. And I ended up not going for that. Just 'cause I'm talking
Nintendo
about it a
clearly
lot.
liked that episode,
kinda
because that was the basis for Luigi's Mansion 3.
It was gonna be... He just goes to apartment 14B.
Yeah. Exactly, and he releases Mucus Luigi.
I think the best super absurd joke in this is that he's got all these tiny bombs. And yeah, is wham one of the words we used?
I think so.
But yeah, the idea that he's gonna blow up this relatively small looking club with like hundreds of tiny bombs.
Labeled bomb.
And shaped like air fresheners. That's one of the best visual gags in this is when there's an air freshener and he's like, "Oh wait, that's an air freshener."
It's pretty crazy that this went to Valkyrie as like a superhero to parody.
Yeah,
really
I don't know if that was
the only gem I got, baby.
I don't know if that was a direct Valkyrie parody or if it was like, let's just do generically a Viking chick, but
Maybe?
You're right, it does
I
look
just
like
assumed
her.
it was a Valkyrie thing.
now keep in mind that Edlund is doing the initial Tick run only like a decade after the Simonson stuff.
Yeah, and I'm not sure. Is that where she's introduced?
I don't remember, but she's around in that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's weird, like, all the things that seem obscure in certain periods that aren't in others, and kind of, go in cycles, right, with comics.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there was a time where Dazzler was one of the, 6 or 10 main X-Men that people would be able to think of when they thought of X-Men characters, and that's not true anymore. You know what I mean? So like just characters that come in and out of obscurity.
Put these little rhinestones all over your clothes.
Yeah, because there was talk that Marvel was
Daniel
getting...
Davis, this could happen to anybody!
Because there was talk that
they had
Marvel
the
was
clapper.
getting Michael Giacchino to direct a project, and people thought it was going to be a Dazzler thing. But then it came out this week that it's Werewolf by Night. There must be really desperate for directors.
And then of course there's the things that the mainstream is not familiar with that, like regular everyday Joes that don't read comics wouldn't and just go to movies would think are obscure, but then like comic people, it's like the biggest, most popular thing. And every decade has those things, you know.
Oh,
yeah,
absolutely.
that weird period where Sentry was really big. Like, who outside of comics would know who that is?
Is that the basis for Doorman?
Is what the basis for Doorman?
Sentry.
Sentry.
No.
Yeah, because
I don't know that Doorman's a direct parody of anybody, but it's
Carlton, your Doorman?
yeah. I think it's just it's like Plunger Man, right? Yeah. Like Doorman is just it sounds like a superhero. It sounds like a really mundane superhero name.
Well, he can.
It's
kind of
just
has
his
a floating
job.
power.
That's the thing is that he seems like a relatively powerful superhero, and all he does is guard the door for a pointless nightclub for superheroes.
And all he's able to do is tell who's not a superhero. Or at least who's a sidekick.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, I say relatively powerful, I guess, just because he's hovering, but that is a pointless superpower. I know that you're not a superhero. Okay.
My doorman senses.
That's a really specific power. How do you even end up with that?
You're bitten by a radioactive doorman.
It's not a big deal, though, because you're nigh invulnerable, so if that bomb went off, it would not kill you. And also, look at how many bombs you needed just to blow up a tiny shack. Like, what kind of explosive power do those even have?
It doesn't look like it would take much to blow that shack to bits.
See, I thought it was really poor design that the nightclub uses the same bathroom for both the club and the sidekick lounge, because any sidekick could just walk in there and then get past Doorman because he's on the other side, like Arthur does.
Yeah.
But then I was thinking, you know what I bet that shack was? I bet that used to be an outhouse. I bet that was the other bathroom, and then they converted it to the sidekick lounge.
They did.
Well, so that is the tiniest dance floor.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll be Bear, you be the thing. Right.
I wonder if you guys had like an extra logo or something, because mine's already over. I just hit the credits.
That's weird. I don't know how that happened.
I don't know, maybe just because I'm watching it on YouTube.
Did you get the opening bit on the couches or on the chairs? Weird. Okay. Maybe you were watching it at a different speed, because that sometimes happens.
The seconds weren't seconds.
Sped up by 10%.
So they don't get flagged. You should slow them down by 10%.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Austin, maybe go ahead and get your disc out so we'll line up better.
I was only off by like
you are, but
a
what
few
am I?
seconds, I think.
Oh, okay, yeah. That's not,
And
that's
we
not
didn't even
terrible.
really realize that until just the end.
The city is just in the middle of this wasteland.
Yeah. But see, I like that because it's called The City, as if it were the only one.
But they're on a planet that there's nothing else exists except one city.
They're just trying to make things easier for Brainiac.
That's it.
Right? Like, when Brainiac comes, he's not even going to have to take the city apart from any other cities. It's just already waiting for him to put it into a bottle.
This is what I like to imagine the, what is it, Coruscant or whatever from Star Wars is. It's just like that one city, and then everything outside of it is just nothing. Instead of the entire planet being a city.
So the next episode I want to watch tonight is... Oh, actually, I think we were going to do one of yours next, Geoff.
Yes.
Hang on. I just got my order out of whack here. Protoclown. So Protoclown and Arthur's bank account are both equally probably the episodes I've watched most, besides maybe Breadmaster from the first season.
Oh man, we didn't get Breadmaster on this list.
Well, yeah, and that was the other one apart from Thrakkerzog that I really seriously considered. But again, it is just an episode I've talked about so much.
That was the one I thought, well, I don't need to pick this one because Jay will.
Yeah, I mean, I felt kind of weird not doing that, but I really wanted to do both of the Terror episodes, because I've come to realize that they together are kind of my favorite episodes of the show. And I've never watched them back to back. And the Human Ton and his little friend
I've actually
Andy
watched
are
any
the
of-
best.
Hardly any of these since my VHS tapes died.
So it's been a while.
Yeah. See, back in the olden days, we had these things called VHS tapes.
Oh yeah, I loved my VHS, except for the fact that I never rewinded when I finished. So it'd be like, oh, I'm gonna go watch this.
Oh,
It's at the end.
but now every VCR just eats every tape you put in it, so I don't dare watch any of them anymore.
Oh,
So yeah, Thomas Lowe, if when you say roommate episode, you mean Uncommon Cold with Thrakkerzog. No, we're not watching that tonight. I very seriously considered it. Now I'm second guessing my picks. Thanks, you guys. So anyway, we're gonna watch episode 12 of season
Next time,
1.
Breadmaster and Thrakkerzog.
According
all of season 3.
According to Hulu, anyway. Yeah, we'll come back and do another one of these. So Tick
We
versus.
still got to come back and do a 60 Spider-Man one again.
Jeff and I had planned at one point of doing commentaries on all of these, so there's every likelihood that we'll come back until we get all of them knocked out in whatever order. But anyway, so season 1, episode 12, according to Hulu, Tick versus Protoclown. And Jeff, this was one of those that I was thinking, if he doesn't pick this, I'll pick this. So this one was going to be here regardless, almost certainly, because the existential crisis thing is one of the funniest things in the show, and that whole bit has some of the most quotable moments that you and I bandy about all the time, even to this day. Because I don't have little wings on the sides of my head like some people.
Oh, I guess we don't know.
Why do little midgets hit me with fish? All right,
Well,
so
I ask myself that every day.
Oh, if I had a nickel.
I
everybody
think it's
get
for
ready.
the Goosebumps show we did, though.
What about that?
Because I picked that one episode just specifically to see midgets dressed as lawn gnomes.
That's true.
So that's the reason they hit me with fish.
It's payback. Okay, so everybody get ready to press play. I'm just about to do that. Make sure you're at timestamp 0.
Get your play pressing finger ready.
And here we go. Everybody please press play right now.
Wow. Oh, it's 6:30.
It's always 6:30 at the beginning of the tick, Jeff.
He gets up at the same time every day.
So we only got 2 iterations of this intro, if memory serves, Jeff. I don't think they changed it for every season.
No.
I'm pretty sure by season 2 it was updated, and then 3 just kept that intro.
Yeah, they didn't change it for 3. No!
One of Jason's favorite villains is Mr. Mental, who was never big for me, but he loves Mr. Mental.
Mr. Menthol! Close enough.
We did Jeff, we did some standard replicator the other day. We did a 20
Oh, yeah?
questions type game, Jason and I stumped him with a Minda.
Oh, wow.
I was kind of surprised he didn't know that. So, kind of rare to get such a kind of blatant pop culture reference joke like you get at the beginning of this. Every now and again, we'll do kind of subtle, pop culture stuff that like you either you get it or you don't. Apparently, the city has the Twin Towers. You either get it or you don't.
Oh my God.
Here we have and then we just blew them up. Yep.
Shocking
We get a blatant
Years before.
Yeah, way before. we get a blatant It reference at the beginning of this episode, and when I was a kid, I didn't pick up on that we were doing a Stephen King thing with this, but we keep. Have you ever thought about that, Jeff? That
No.
we keep over and over again before we reveal Protoclown, calling this giant clown creature
right.
It, just over and over again. What is it? It's a clown. There's no way that's not intentionally an It reference.
Penny wise, pound foolish, I guess.
Yeah. When I finally
Tick
picked
is
up on
also
that, I
wearing
was.
my classic I Heart Wheat shirt.
I love the Wheatland shirt, and That's one of the 4 talking tick figures that they made for the show. I do own the Wheatland tick figure. He doesn't talk about Wheatland anymore because his batteries died long, long ago. But
Stop.
it. So this is, I don't know, second or third appearance of the Civic Minded
That
5.
hat.
They show up quite a bit.
What is the deal with that hat?
It doesn't look like it belongs in this country.
I mean, it's not wheat themed or anything.
No. Why does it have that bag?
Wham.
Tom put in a super chat about the VLM. I don't know why he's talking about that with this, because that's not in the animated series. That's the very large man from first season.
Oh, yeah.
Amazon Tech. But he just says, are 2 VLM called VLM or VLMS? I don't know, Tom. The world will never know.
Very large men, I guess.
Yeah.
Like a Tootsie Pop.
Perhaps I can read.
Daniel Davis, this joke aged well. If you're talking about the It thing, yes. But he might
think
be.
he was talking about
he might be talking about the
9/11.
Twin Towers thing, and in that case, he's being facetious. Clearly. Again, how would you know?
I know. I'll appeal to this.
Although I could make the argument that it's even already a little weird to knock over the Twin Towers a couple or a few years after there was an attempted
Trade
bombing.
Center bombing.
Like, that had just happened.
That's the really awkward line in the '98 Godzilla film where Godzilla attacks New York, and then the newscaster, who's just Kent Brockman, because they get that actor in.
Oh, really?
And it's really they get like most of the Simpsons cast in that movie. It's really weird. But he's like, this is the worst thing that's happened in New York since the World Trade Center bombing.
Oh, man.
Wow.
That's
It's
awkward.
like the 9/11 of jokes.
Yeah, I said attempted. There was an actual bombing, but obviously it didn't take down the towers.
There was a
I bet people didn't think we'd talk about 9/11 for this long on this
It's
show.
not our fault. It was right there. And it does annoy me sometimes when people feel the need to, make a big deal out of every time the Twin Towers show up in something before 9/11. Because, like, guys, it's not prophetic. The Twin Towers were a big deal. I mean,
Yeah,
2 of the largest buildings in the world. And they were, the important business was done there. Obviously, they were going to show up. And that's a, it's an iconic thing. They were going to show up and stuff. The closer you got to 9/11, the weirder it was when they would show up and stuff, of course. Like the Spiderman teaser with a scene that ended up not even being in that movie. Do you know about that?
yeah.
With the web between the 2 towers. And then they had to drop that scene out because then 9/11 happened shortly thereafter.
Yeah, the weirdest is when something was made before they were taken down, but released afterwards.
Yeah, or would have
Yeah.
been released, but it was canceled. Yeah.
You know what else has that for Spider-Man is the Spider-Man 2, the PS1 game. The last boss of that game is supposed to be fighting Electro on the Twin Towers, and then 9/11 happens. They add like a little bridge between them, and it's like, it's just 2 different buildings.
That's really strange. So anyway, we haven't talked enough about this episode.
mind.
Protoclown is a weird episode because the whole cloning thing is a funny idea that I actually think is kind of funnier on paper than it is even in execution. The reason this episode is so memorable is this stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, shiny objects are good.
This becomes kind of a B story that you care about more than the A story. And when we keep flashing back to the A story, there's fun things being done there, but it's kind of it's kind of a typical like disaster film kind of scenario.
Forehead.
And then we just use it as an excuse for the Tick to have to go on an existential journey. And what's so great about it is just that it's the most absurd possible setup for that. Like,
No,
the
this
only
feels
reason
like a
he's here is because a
prototype to
big
that
clown hit me,
Futurama
and that's
episode.
what he'll learn finally.
Spoiler alert.
That's it. I'm sorry, what, Austin?
Oh, this feels like a prototype to the Futurama episode where Bender gets like launched into space, and he has like a whole existential like God thing.
It's been too long since I've
Yeah.
seen that show. I don't remember that.
Oh, that's a really good episode.
Now, the thing that will drive you crazy if you overthink it too much is where the Tick is right now. Because he gets hit by a bus, right? He goes out into space, and now he's essentially in his own mind going through an existential journey, and then he'll come back. I guess he is just floating around in space, because he does have to re-enter, and then he's gonna crash down. But, like, what is he actually doing out in space while that's all going on in his mind? Like, if you came by and saw him while he's doing all of that, is he talking to himself? Is he unconscious? Like, I don't know. And it's Dr. Bud Frontier.
Weirdest eyebrows.
That design's got to be based on something. Again, just things where I'm like, you're making fun of something that's over my head. There's something going on with this guy, and I don't know what it is.
Is it looking at like killer clowns from outer space? I don't know. I've never seen it, so.
But I'm not talking about Protoclown. I'm talking about Bud Frontier.
Oh, the
scientist.
Oh, okay. He looks like Bruce Banner.
Edward 18517. I forgot about that. He says Shredder was even trying to dig under the Twin Towers in the 3rd episode of the 87 Ninja Turtle show.
Oh, that's true.
I think there's an episode of the 90s Iron Man show where the Mandarin attacks the towers or something.
So, Geoff, I imagine if I asked you to name the 4 members of the Civic Minded 5, the one you would, if you ever had trouble remembering, would be Jungle Janet, right?
You know,
that's the one that does not stick with me. I always forget about her.
And she actually does more than I think any of them do.
It's true. But I think she seems more generic than anybody else.
Because the rest of them are, like, really ridiculous. And they are useless because they're so ridiculous. But that also makes them more...
Well, like, Four-Legged Man is an obvious analog to Mr. Fantastic.
The Tick subplot went from that Futurama episode to the Johnny Cash Simpsons episode.
Yeah, Tick's learning a lot about how dense he is as a person. His mind's really flat. He's easily distracted by shiny objects. Which is also a quote I go to a lot.
Something shiny.
I'm easily distracted by shiny objects. And I also like that his guide self is in some ways exactly like him, and in other ways is more enlightened.
Their pool balls are all the same color.
We got higher numbers, too.
Yeah.
We'll get to that. We are doing that later.
Like part of the circus. Feral boy.
So I guess the reason that Bud Frontier ended up doing something as insane as clowning is probably just because he never got surgery for his eyes being crossed.
And his eyebrow being shaped like whatever that is.
I can't help but think that we're kind of going to a Jurassic Park place here a little bit, which is the 2nd episode to sort of directly, if not maybe a little bit indirectly, reference Jurassic Park, because we obviously also do that with Dinosaur Neil.
And climbing the pool cue.
Yeah, I always like that detail.
It's kind. It's against the laws of nature.
You know, I never liked that line reading from Arthur there, just because it almost feels like he's making fun of the material.
Yeah. It's sort of this fake drama.
Yeah, well, this whole scenario is trying to be like a 40s sci-fi movie, and Arthur is not the character to suddenly go kind of out of character and act real over the top like that. Like, my gosh, man, like, I don't know, that's not right for that character. You could have had somebody else do that.
Ooh.
I'm nitpicking hard, but I never liked that. This
that
whole
was
thing...
how I felt when I first saw a gigantic smiley face float over a hill. What manner of quandary is this?
Really, your eyes just went into squiggly lines? Yeah. Is that what happened?
Like
And
that
then you walked up
spiraling
a
shape.
Then you walked up a tongue ladder.
So when
Or
you
staircase.
were in my mouth wrestling with my tongue,
Was that weird for you? You will never awaken. Does the imagery of this not feel, Geoff, just like decisively Douglas Adams to you?
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
just everything about this.
the face with the tongue certainly does.
Yeah. Bizarre with a capital B is a thing I say quite a bit.
Yeah.
Do you have this where you go to the show all the time and you don't always in the moment even remember where the quote is?
Yeah.
Like, if I think about it real hard, I could probably go back and tell you where it is. I know the show really, really well, but it's just kind of part of the vernacular in my brain now. I've also never liked that either. You don't date much. Like, the show's usually better than those kinds of, you know, like cute, put a cap on it kinds of lines to like cap out a comedic sequence.
I'm afraid so.
The wink at the camera kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was definitely a weird joke.
It's a weird joke. Like, why is the snake in his mind wanting to date him? I don't know what's going on there.
Clown.
Also, I'm going to nitpick this too, Geoff. I've never thought about this before. The Tick shouldn't have anything in his mind that ever brings up anything that gets remotely close to sex. Because he's the most asexual creature there is. Like, he would not have a snake in his head that says you don't date much. Like, he just wouldn't.
Maybe so.
I don't buy it.
I mean, we never really find out what the Tick is.
Yeah, but that's just the furthest thing from his mind, is what I'm saying. I mean, I guess you could have, like, a subconscious thing, but that just feels like a careless line that nobody thought about.
Like,
I always like to faint him out.
in the
So are you saying,
subconscious-
Cap, that he's asexual and a bunch of kids in a classroom would
you
laugh
find
at him?
just the
Yes,
repressed
that's what I'm saying.
shreds of the things that are absolutely blown out of his conscious mind.
Well, that's a good point. So this is one of the classic scenes of the show.
You know, Inside Out is basically this.
Yeah! I had that thought the first time I saw that
Not
movie.
written by Ben Edlund.
It could have been. He would have done it very differently, though.
Yeah.
That's a great movie.
We should do that one.
We should. We need to get back to the Pixar movies.
How are we doing?
So when we were making plans for this show, Geoff sent me a thumbs up over Messenger and then immediately said, how we doing? Or what was it? We're doing fine!
Doing great!
And now we're going to get the midgets with fish.
That's when I knew that this episode had to be on the list.
I mean, I would pick it for that too. So,
Oh, they all have D's on them.
This is one of, yes, because it's his defense mechanisms.
Right.
Mm-hmm. This is one of the best examples of non sequitur humor in the show. And this kind of thing always really appealed to me. I don't know. For me, it's kind of a chicken and the egg thing for myself, where I don't know like how much of my random sensibilities comes from things like this show, or if I like this show because I had that already. But I love things like, you know, what random thing could we have these things hit somebody with? Fish. You know, you roll a d20 and come up with something, you know, random and insane, and I love that kind of thing.
like the Jewish vulture ghost birds in Danny Phantom when we did
Yeah,
that.
what the heck was that? Geoff, you would love that show.
Should watch that.
Oh, and they were all
hate
wearing
you.
fezzes?
Say it again.
And they were all wearing fezzes for some
Oh,
reason?
yeah, fezzes! I love stuff like that. No, that was a blend of like 19 things I love. Because it was like Tick and Ghostbusters and all these other things.
Yeah, I figured going into it you'd like it because it's very Spiderman and Ghostbusters.
Austin, you're
somebody
gonna have to
earlier
finally...
mentioned his other show because there's like a superhero named the Crimson Chin in his show Fairly Odd Parents that they were saying is a lot like the Tick, and visually I wouldn't be shocked if that's what they were looking at.
Oh, interesting.
No more midgets.
I will say, if Edlund ever one more time attempts to bring Tick back to TV without, you know, the new Amazon cast, because he shopped it around, couldn't get anybody else to take it, has said that that ship has sailed, but if he ever gets to bring it back, he wants to go back to Serafinowicz, and as much of that cast as he can, I think is what he said. But if that, and I don't see that ever happening, but if that, which is sad, but if that never happens, and he tried to bring it back to TV one more time, I could see him bookending with another animated show. I think if we ever get the Tick back on TV, that's a last ditch thing, is we go back to animation. Whether it's an attempted season 4 of the show, which might sound like crazy talk, but like 90s X-Men is coming back. Like, they're
not any crazier than any other means of bringing the show back.
I mean, rights are real sticky with this, so there is that question of like who owns it and if it would even be possible to bring that back. But even, you know, if he did something sort of like this in 2D, I could even see him do some kind of 3D animation thing. A big clown hit me.
I feel hot.
So Tick goes into space, I want to say a total of 3 times in the show. And 2 of them are on by complete accident. Like, when that happens in Alone Together, it's a weirdly similar situation, Geoff.
Right.
He just gets knocked into space. And the big difference is here he...
Well,
at best I can figure, goes into some sort of coma or something. In Alone Together, he's just floating in space, and it's like, man, a guy could get really bored out here.
Well, it's the explosion of that was from the device to fill in the letters on the moon.
Oh, that's right. He was on the moon. He was already in space.
So he first went into space on purpose.
Right.
Then.
That's true. And then the other time, which we'll watch after a while, he gets abducted by space. Looky, I'm getting abducted by space aliens. Edward, oh, and it's dry heat. I always like that line too.
I'll make him less funny.
Geoff, do you have a favorite end of episode speech from the Tick? Because almost every episode has one. That's one of the big formula things with the show.
It's an interesting question. The first season ones, in general, I tend to like the best.
Yep, I agree. They get weirder and weirder.
The one at the end of Little Wooden Boy in the Belly of Love does come back to
he's
me.
really quite brilliant.
Mysteries abound.
Little Wooden Boy is also a really great example of just weird non sequitur humor with like blowhole.
Yep.
I was actually a little surprised you didn't pick that one.
Guys, we're in a whale. It was on my short list.
It's hard for me not to pick the one at the end of Breadmaster. 'Cause, I mean,
yeah.
Breadmaster script just in general, but like, man was not meant to tamper with any of the 4 basic food groups.
Man, that whole script was just golden.
It's killer. There's a part of me that wants to change my episodes. I almost want to play that at Fracker's Eye now. But yeah, we're gonna have to come back and do this again. I just think it'll be so much fun to watch the Terror episodes back to back. Okay, so the next thing I had on the docket
Spiderman
was Arthur's bank account. So yeah, we'll go ahead and watch that, and then we'll take a break, and then we'll come back and do the follow-up and do Grandpa Wore Tight. So we will watch it back to back, but we'll take a break in between.
Intermission.
Da da da. Da, 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 da. So, episode 13, according to Hulu, the very next episode, Tick versus Arthur's bank account. So I said rights issues with this are weird. I guess it's flat out totally owned by Disney now. I don't know about, which is weird.
Isn't everything?
Yeah, but I mean it's Hulu, it's ABC. I don't know about the DVD distribution and if that's the same thing as streaming distribution. I'm always confused about that. If you have the same rights with like streaming and video.
I'm sure it's a separate
not.
category.
Mm-hmm.
I would think so.
Separate contracts, separate negotiations, separate licensing.
All a bunch of hoopla.
Well, and that's the reason I believe that 60s Batman is still not streaming anywhere. And I mean, it was a miracle that we ever got that on DVD in the first place, but like that was distributed by Fox. And Disney now owns Fox, but Batman is Warner Brothers. So like I don't know if we'll ever see that streaming. Like it's a really bizarre situation.
Disney
Yeah,
owns
no, it's
almost
really
everything.
weird. I want to know who owns the 60s Marvel cartoons, because none of those are on Disney+.
I'm sorry, what were we saying?
Said I'd like to know who owns the 60s Marvel shows, because none of those are on Disney+, but
Yeah.
Disney put out the DVD for the Spider-Man one. But that was like a while ago now.
Yeah. And you'd think that they put everything else there, like really obscure stuff too.
Mm-hmm. No, it's very strange. And that's like a show people know.
Like they put that Spider-Woman show up.
Yeah.
I didn't even know that existed before Disney Plus had that. Somebody
that
asked me to
weird
put it in that
Avengers
24-hour
show
stream a
from the
couple years
90s.
ago. I was like, what is this?
I still don't know it exists.
Yeah. Yeah, there was in, what was that, mid-70s, early 80s?
Something like that, yeah. It was on Netflix for the longest time here.
Oh, was it really? We watched an
Yeah.
episode of that on that stream. It was very strange. Oh yeah, we'll get to Joseph Stalin here in just a minute. Okay, so
That's another one of my famous catchphrases.
What's that? We'll get to Joseph Stalin.
We'll get to Joseph Stalin, yeah.
Once again, episode 13 of season 1, according to Hulu. Get it to timestamp 0 and get ready to press play when I say now. We're just about to do that. Here we go. Get ready to get into your giant spider tank. Everybody, get ready to press play right now. So occasionally I'll be somewhere and I don't know, like on TV or somebody's house or whatever, and Geoff, I'll hear an alarm clock that sounds exactly like this alarm clock. Have you ever had that?
I used to have an alarm clock that made exactly that sound.
Did you really?
And
Oh,
that
I
used
couldn't
to be
deal
pretty
with that.
For a long time, they all sounded like that.
So I gotta say, I was a little disappointed when this came to Hulu that the transfer wasn't better. I mean, it looks fine, but it looks about like it did when you taped it off TV. It's not super cleared up. It's not mastered anyway. Not that I expected anybody to really do anything with this, but I just thought if you went back to the masters, maybe it would look prettier, and it doesn't. It's
Maybe they actually got this off someone who taped it off the air.
It's possible, and that's not unprecedented. You go and look at some early Sesame Street on HBO Max, and that's what that clearly is. So
Really?
Yeah, it's
That's
possible
crazy.
that... Isn't that bizarre? Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
episodes of Doctor Who that only survived because of that.
Yeah, and a lot that didn't, or at least a few that didn't. And I'm not sure, maybe it's possible the masters for this don't exist, but I would be surprised by that because I know there's a lot of animation cells that exist for this show. So it's hard to imagine that those reels aren't somewhere.
Oh my god, it's a John Peters episode.
Keeping somebody's table level.
Nope. Such a good teaser. And here's Sally Vacuum, who at some point gets replaced with Brian Pinade, and I don't totally know why, but... Or do they just go back and forth?
Sally Vacuum ends up tangled up by her microphone to Blowhole
And then never comes back.
and is never seen again.
Yeah, and thumbs up for Evil. That's one of my favorite stills. The entire show. It's the best. In the card game that Sarah and I created for this show, we made that one of the missions in the game. Thumbs up for Evil, and you have to find the Terror and Joseph Stalin. Ah! It's one of my favorite jokes in this. It's just every time somebody says terror, you go, ah!
Punching out Mount
A terrified city cringes in its collective pajamas. That's a thing that I find ways to sneak in all the time. This is the origin of Spoon. And we get it right at the end of the first season. I will never... I've talked about this before, but Geoff, I'll never ever understand how Spoon became the popular thing everybody remembers about this show. I've never understood that. I don't know how we got to that. It's not a big thing in the comics.
Yeah.
Like the initial Ben Edlund run, if it does it, it's subtle. I don't even know if it does. It's like people only knowing Particle Man in Istanbul with TMBG.
Yeah.
Where it's like, why are those the two songs? I don't know, but it's all anybody knows about TMBG, and They Might Be Giants. Same thing with the Tick. It's like everybody knows about Spoon. How did that catch on?
With the Giants, that makes sense, though, because those two got videos. They were in that Animaniacs cartoon.
Yeah, well, the Tiny Toons, but
They
yeah.
got, Birdhouse got airplay on the radio.
Yep.
And on MTV.
But that's what I'm saying, is that,
Yeah.
like, those two over Birdhouse even, a lot of people.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's true.
My
It's
guess...
even weirder where people say, Triangle Man hates Istanbul.
My guess is that the Spoon thing was used more in promotional material than I'm aware of. That's the best thing I can come up
that.
with.
I think that there are like single frames slipped in whenever he does the Spoon thing that says, "You will remember this."
I don't know why, though.
Programming thing.
Well, and like it becomes his catchphrase, and he uses it when he goes into battle some, but like it's not like it's in every episode. And again, it's weird because it's at the very end of the first season, and I always think of this show's heyday being the first season. Like, I don't know that it's ever as popular in the next couple seasons as it is during this season, but I might be wrong about that, because I mean, I'm a kid and I love the show, but I didn't see all of it when it was on.
Maybe Ben Edlund just went around beating people with spoons.
Toon Law, Not of This Earth is a comic creation. She's a Ben Edlund thing in his initial run. She doesn't have anything to do with the Terror, but I don't believe... No, she does, because he has... I just remembered this, because he has kind of an Evil League of Evil at the tail end of that run, and she's there with him, and I think Thrakkerzog might be part of that. I forget now. Man-Eating Cow had her own comic series. I don't know if you know about that, Austin. Ooh. And it's and it's tied into the initial Edlund run, and the Tick is in it. So the joke is it's called Man-Eating Cow, but it's not really about Man-Eating Cow. Human Ton is also there. Like, this whole conglomerate here is all comic book characters.
Yeah, I was going to say, is that a parody of Bessie the Hell Cow from Marvel?
I couldn't tell you. I don't know what that is.
It's a vampire cow that fights blades.
Oh, it does? I never noticed that before. Sound boss, you jerk.
You're out of the loop.
Geoff, Freddie has latched onto the show harder than I realized he had. Like, my kids have watched all the way through the show with me, but Freddie quotes this a lot, and like recently he's been saying read a book a lot. I don't know the last time he even saw this episode, but just constantly he'll be just like, read a book.
That's Freddie.
Yeah.
This is perfect.
That's my 7-year-old. Daniel Davis says Spoons just said memorably. Yeah, maybe so. And it makes me think that this show had even more viewers than a lot of people realize, at least in this first season.
Well, it got a second season.
Yeah.
And a third.
And about as much merchandising as most everything else that was on Fox at the time.
Yeah.
And I never realized just how much until I decided to collect all of it. And I have nearly every piece of memorabilia from this show from that period. And it's kind of staggering how much they managed to put out in just a couple of lines of action figures. And it's really sad the stuff we didn't get and the stuff we were supposed to get that we didn't get. But
like the Deflator Mouse signal.
I'd have bought it. I'd have bought that. I love the Tick's obsession with with apparatus, and he's trying to be more like Batman. And he doesn't actually need any of this because he's nigh invulnerable, and his power set makes, like, he's got Arthur to do his thinking for him, and he can't be hurt, and he's super strong, so, like, he doesn't really need any of this stuff, but in his mind, this is what superheroes are supposed to do, and it's established right away with the what does your bed turn into, what do you do with your kitchen, your couch, all of that, and it's really nice that we did a follow-up that is all about the Tick spending money irresponsibly, and his heart's sort of in the right place. He wants to be a better superhero, but at the same time, he's also impulsive and suddenly obsessed with material things.
Pendecker series.
Your lucky numbers are.
The Tick is like a little kid's idea of what a superhero is. Except he's a big kid trying to be what a little kid's idea of a superhero is.
Yeah, that's a great way to articulate that.
I love when he shoots off the message and it like blows up in the background.
Yep.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and this speaks to what you're talking about, Geoff, where it's like, I don't even know what the crime chemicals do. It's just I'm supposed to have them. It's like crime chemicals. I mean, the clearest analog with the Tick is 60s Batman, and obviously a huge influence on the look and the sound with this show in particular. Like, I always thought that Townsend Coleman was kind of doing an Adam West. And here it's like he's not just trying to be Batman, he's trying to be that version of Batman. I mean, Batman in that show always had, like, chemicals and random things in the Batcave, and I don't know what any of it did, and neither does anybody else. It just
nuclear reactor over here.
Yeah, for no reason. It just powers the whole thing.
It powers the atomic batteries. And gets the turbines
to speed, right.
Dear Town.
Dear Town.
So you see, there is one other city in this world.
Well,
the city and Deer Town.
Yeah, well, there's some others that are referenced. It's funny because Deer Town is
Reno.
even brought up in another episode. So much
a bunch of times.
Such a nice sense of continuity in the show. I always appreciate attention to detail where episodic shows like this care about stuff like that. And it always made it easier to get invested to me.
Like, why should I remember these things if the people who make the show don't bother to?
Yeah, and like, you don't necessarily have to do that. You don't have to do callbacks just for the sake of fan service, but it never feels like that's what we're doing with the show. It's like if you have a big space alien take a bite out of the moon, then every episode after that, the bite will be out of the moon. And we take that kind of thing for granted now, but like, kid cartoons in the early mid-90s weren't necessarily paying attention to those kinds of details. Yeah. And more we were starting to.
Ooh, the song.
So this is one of my favorite moments in the entire series. We had to watch this episode.
I just had an epiphany. I was trying to think of who the voice of Dot was. I'm like, I recognize that. And she's Alice in the first Mad Hatter episode of the animated series.
She's a Fox cartoon staple actress, and a lot of the voices in this show are just people they had in-house.
Oh, for sure.
Like
she just has like a very specific voice. Just bugging me for like 5 minutes.
This song is to me like as iconic as Spoon or something. And a thing that if you watch through the show, and because nobody ever talks about the song, if you watch through the show from beginning to end, after we get When No One Understands You, start really listening to the soundtrack because it comes back a lot. Whenever the Tick is feeling kind of insecure and isn't sure what to do with something, real subtly in the soundtrack, you'll get all of a sudden piano music. Da, 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 da. It's in Tick versus Reno, Nevada when he's got his gambling addiction. There's a number of places it shows up. It's Homer!
gigantic spider.
Edward, I had the Tick toy that you could press down on the back, and his chest would sink down over his body before popping back up.
Weird.
Yeah, I'm actually not sure which one you're talking about. Was that one of the Happy Meal toys?
I'm not.
Oh, you know what? No, that was one of the Bandai figures, I think. Maybe. The thing is, I have all that stuff, but not out of box. I'd like to get a second set of all of it at some point. Because some of those figures I've never gotten out of box and actually messed with. Because I bought out a mint condition collection and could not bring myself to open any of it. In Austin, some of the packaging I have is the Canadian variants. Because the collection
so they
I
have
bought
French
out...
on them?
What's that?
So do they have French writing on them?
Yeah, the big talking tick does.
Yeah. Yeah, because we split everything. It's got to have French and English.
And it's weird because it makes you think that you'll be able to get your talking tick to speak French, but it doesn't. But it could have, because there's an episode where he turns into a two-headed bird that speaks French.
Yeah.
That happens.
Well, if you press him in a
Canadian
French way,
necessarily, but French. Sorry, what?
It said if you press him in the French way, then he will.
Oh.
He'll be like,
in the French way. That sounds dirty.
Takes off his tie.
Character model on Mayor Blank there looked very strange. That was almost a Simpsons kind of facial exaggeration.
Yeah. Comrade Handy.
This is one of the tightest episodes of this show, as far as setup and payoff, where we introduce all this again apparatus that the Tick gets obsessed with, and it ruins his relationship for a minute with Arthur. But then he uses it at the end to save the day. It's not just there to create conflict and then goes away.
I wonder if there's any connection with the Terror's kind of jazz era lingo and the jazz soundtrack.
Yeah, I imagine that you would have gotten more jazz in this episode than the show usually has if the show hadn't already gone with a jazz theme, but I think it's just kind of fortuitous that it's already in that mode.
Huh, yes.
And this is my diversion. Is he finished? Oh, yeah. He's finished. The best thing is, there's no reason they all had to stand there and listen to him do that, but they do.
So it's a successful diversion. It
Yeah.
totally worked.
Yeah, why are they so attentive?
Yeah. Like they're waiting to see if he's really going to finish it.
So yeah, like, in a weird way, it turns out that the Tick is sort of kind of right in that the stuff that he buys really does end up helping them out. But it doesn't mean that he's any less wrong in the way he went about all of it. Now, that is a thing that if this had been more serialized, we could have built on a little bit and dealt with, like, a compromise between them. We don't really do that, of course. By the end of this episode, it's basically just, there's established credit limits, the Tick says. And then after that, you get, like, one reference to it. But, you know, he doesn't keep buying stuff. There's that episode where he's like, hey, Arthur, do you still have the secret message cannon? Okay, so this is one of my favorite mistakes in the show. He didn't have the harness before the commercial break.
Yeah.
And then we cut, and now he's got it. Did you notice that, Austin? He wasn't wearing that. And now he's wearing that. Clearly some kind of weird mistake must have happened in storyboards, and they went, well, hopefully being over a commercial break, nobody will notice it. And I don't remember noticing that when I was a kid. But the problem is you watch things without commercials now. So, Human Ton and... Yeah, this is so...
onto my armored
so
moo-moo.
weird. My armored moo-moo. So, obviously, Human Ton and Handy are a parody of the ventriloquist and Scarface. What's up?
Except the Human Ton gets captured later and is in jail.
Yeah. What about it? Well, I mean,
So did Toon Law bring
that
him
happens at
back
the end of
later,
this.
or-
Yeah. What's that now?
Does Toon Law bring him back later? Or?
What do you mean?
I mean, Toon Law. Oh, that's right. That was Stalin.
No,
Never mind.
she takes Stalin. Human Ton at the end of this is going to go to jail.
That's right.
And then
Okay.
we follow up with it direct sequel material in the next episode we're going to watch here. But yeah, we handle, so in Batman it's just kind of like quirky comic book thing that you're not supposed to think too much about, that somehow ventriloquist is able to have the kind of interactions that he has with Scarface that look like, you know, kind of impossible. And here we make a flat out, like, this is impossible joke out of it, and it's great. Think about the logistics of what you'd have to do with your thumb, and that moment is amazing. The armored tank is from the comics, and we do something kind of like it in the Amazon show.
Yeah, the big T ship.
Yeah.
No, this is the John Peters version. It's a giant spider.
See, if he made a Tick movie, he'd be like, yeah, you gotta have the giant spider. And it's like, well, I mean, that's fine. Like, that's a Tick thing. We can have the giant spider. Like, whatever.
I didn't
He sees
until
his own
last
hand
week
for the
see
first
like
time.
how the spider was supposed to be in that Superman movie, and it blew my mind.
See, I see Human Ton has that same psychology where he can't be without the puppet that tells him what to do. Except this puppet is not a brilliant Italian mob boss.
Yeah. And the Human Ton actually does do a few things. The ventriloquist really doesn't.
Well, no, that's true.
It's like, it's all the puppet. And he's just this blank guy standing there.
But that's what's so interesting about it, because obviously it is all him, but it's this other personality that is personified in this puppet.
I'd love to have seen what they could have done, what they'd have done with him in the '60s live series. I get in the nose.
Bad dog.
Goodness.
Oh, Geoff, another of my favorite speeches is you gotta suck that lozenge.
Yeah.
Edward, I always wondered if Stalin, like, froze in space or something after this episode. That's all you get. Read a book. Okay, is that in the
Like,
same...
he really didn't think he was going to get a second series.
Yeah. Is that in the same set where they were talking to the British guy? Because, like, he's just on black at a camera. Like, what is even the
Ooh, I never thought of
context
that.
of that? Like, where are we?
I never really put any thought into that little stinger.
I'm obsessed
Now,
with POV.
Does the puppet have both eyes in that stinger? Because when Arthur was stomping on him, one of them popped off.
Right, and that...
It must have been a flashback.
Yeah,
Well, that could be.
it must have not actually been in the same timeline because
Out of production order.
Yeah, exactly. Because that is a detail that we'll keep track of in his follow-up,
Yep.
where he is missing an eye, and he actually has an eye patch.
Oh, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. We'll see that here in a minute. But yeah, I mean, the difference with him in Ventriloquist, obviously, is the Ventriloquist is horrified of Scarface, and here, like, they're almost best buddies or something. Like,
Yeah, they're allies.
they just can't live without each other. I mean, his relationship...
They're codependent.
This is going to be a really silly thing to say, but their relationship is kind of the same as the Tick's relationship with his antennae. Where like if he loses them, he doesn't have balance and he can't deal with anything.
Could be onto something there.
You know, it's so ridiculous. It
You
just
may
might
be on
true.
something there.
I might be on something there. We're going to take a 5-minute break, and when we come back, we're going to watch the direct follow-up to that, which was not in the very next episode, but in the next season, and it's Grandpa wore tights. Interestingly, if this is the same as the release order, each of these was the last episode of the season. And I don't know if that's actually how it aired, but it would have been really cool if it was, yeah. Where you get a terror episode at the end of the first season, terror episode at the end of the second season, and then third season ends prematurely and really needed a couple more episodes, but...
One of which probably would have been.
Yeah. And those are not the only episodes the terror shows up in, but they are the only episodes that feature him as the central antagonist.
True.
He is also in Coach Fussel's Lament. And I'm forgetting if there's another one. I think there might even be one more where he briefly shows up, but he is at the auction. Remember when they're auctioning off the tick bird, and he's like, "Hey, that's not the tick. The tick's like, what a man, right?" Oh no, he says, "What do you call it? A man, right?" I knew a socket had once. No, buckets. Definitely buckets in my
Like in
family.
Muncie.
So, Grandpa Wore Tights is the next episode we're going to watch. It's the 13th episode of Season 2. So, we're going to skip around a little bit now because we're going to go back to some earlier Season 2 when we finish this. But I wanted to watch these back to back because I thought that would be a lot of fun.
These psychic journeys do tend to jump around a lot.
This episode has my absolute favorite tick line in the entire series, and I can't wait to get to that because I quote it all the time, and I brought it up on the channel many times, and we're finally going to watch it. So anyway, 5-minute break, and we'll be right back here in a minute. If anybody, we don't have a big crowd tonight, but if anybody happens to pop in and is wondering where we are, just let them know that we're going to come back for a second part with 3 more episodes of The Tick.
And in the 24th and a half century!
See you guys in 5 minutes.
Let's kidnap them.
And we're back, folks. Why'd you have to say that as I'm getting... Nobody even knows what we're talking about. Austin, can you hear us? Are you there?
What?
Sounds like your level's a little high.
How's it going?
Oh my god. You're wearing a jacket.
So I have, as a lot of you guys know, a giant tick collection. I alluded to that earlier, and I want to show you guys a few things that I just went randomly and pulled during the break. I've done a video years ago on my tick collection that you can go back and look at, and it's expanded a little bit since then, but not a ton. I've slowed down on it quite a bit. But I want to show you guys a couple of things that are somewhat relevant to stuff that we just looked at. Here is that figure that I mentioned earlier, the I Love Wheat a tick figure, and this used to talk, and he used to say... I don't know what.
I'm lukewarm about wheat.
Yeah. Apparently this one just said mysteries abound. And that's a thing the tick says. I don't know why specifically the I Love Wheat shirt, but it seems like they just randomly put something with each figure. I don't know.
And he's got the same hat.
This line, yeah. Yeah, they did a great job in all the details of this stuff, and it was really great that Bandai got this license, because I mean they put the same kind of work into it that they did Power Rangers, and it's that larger size, and so they're just wonderful. But one of the things I love about this line specifically is, so they had a tourist tick, which was the one from Pineapple Pocopo, where he's wearing the tropical shorts. And then they've got the I Dig Dinosaur Neil shirt. So 2 of the 4 he's wearing t-shirts. And then the other one is just a standard generic tick, and they called it Natural Tick, which is spectacular, because we always had the joke of the tick's not wearing an outfit, he's naked. That's just how he came into the world. Yeah. And so they call that Natural Tick. I think that's really classy. And then...
No costume, chum. I am simply... the tick.
Here's one of the only figures that we ever got of the Terror. This is one of the Bendables, and he looks awful. This one's really bad, but we never got a 6-inch Terror. I don't think. I was looking over there. I'm pretty sure they never put that out, which is kind of sad. And so there were some characters like this that only came out in other weird sizes. So there were these like smaller, like 3.5-inch figures on bases that I think they maybe made a Terror version of, and then they had the Bendables.
Looks like they took a Lex Luthor figure and just put it in a microwave.
I mean, it sort of does the job, but yeah, the facial expression seems right. But I don't know. I grabbed this as, I've talked about this before, but I grabbed this as an example of these weird pieces of merchandise that had very often a character that was only in the background for 10 seconds in the show called Dynamole. And he showed up constantly in the merchandising. Didn't have an episode, didn't hardly have a voice, was not important in any way. I think they thought
not
that
related
maybe
to the mole man.
Yeah, I don't know why they did this. He has one of the bigger action figures. When a bunch of like Chairface doesn't have an action figure in that scale, but Dynamole does, and he was just in the background at the Chairface party in the first Chairface episode. It cracks me up.
It's like
what is
The Simpsons with Blinky the fish.
Yeah.
I've got some tick stuff
The
in
taste
this bag.
can't be beat.
So I guess when I moved, I put a few things in this bag so they didn't get lost. I've been actually kind of wondering where this was. This I've not shown on camera before, because I didn't have it yet I don't think, when I did my tour video a few years ago. So this is memorabilia from the pilot of... Wait, no, this is a different thing. This is a different thing. Okay, so I have shell casings and a couple of other things from the pilot of the Amazon Tick Show, and it's in an envelope that looks just like this, but that's not what this is. This is actually the, so this is the certificate of oneness. This is the Tick fan club thing that you got if you joined the Edlin Tick fan club, and there's funny things that come with that. There's like a plastic spoon that they just put a number on. Like they just went out and bought plastic spoons, and then they were all numbered. It's great. And then I guess there's a beanie, and then what else? There's a football. There's another hat. So like I have lots of random tick things. Anyway.
Is that one a
Should
tick
maybe
hat?
see a neurologist about that.
What is it? Oh, this is the complete tick pog set. A lot of this stuff I kind of wonder what happened to it. I just found it all.
See that.
Remember the tick? He's back in pug form.
Yeah. There's a Tick comic series. There's a miniseries called The Tick's Back. And in the cover...
A dinosaur story?
Yeah, a dinosaur story. A Dinosaur Neil story. And the cover to The Tick's Back #0 is the tick with his back turned to you, and he's pointing at his back. It's like the tick's back, and it's a double entendre. And I think that would be a remarkable back tattoo if somebody got like the tick with his back turned to you on your back.
You know what would be even better is if you got that exact tattoo on your back, but it was a tattoo of you doing that with like a tick tattoo of him doing that on that back.
That has so many layers I can't even handle it. And just to
Exactly.
have to try to describe that to somebody. And then lastly, real quick, I wanted to show you guys this, because this is one of, if not my favorite thing in my entire tick collection. Again, I've talked about this before, but I mean, it's been 6 years. I think I can get away with bringing this up again. So, have I shown you this?
No.
Do you know about this? Oh, you don't? Okay, this is, maybe it'll come back to you. I feel like I must have told you about this, but maybe not.
Probably did.
So, this is a brochure.
Before the accident.
So this, take a minute to let that sink in. This is a brochure that went to retailers just before the original Tick figure line came out. And this is very rare, and I have never found another one, and I've never found reference to this anywhere online. I got really lucky. I just found it in an eBay auction, and I really thought I might get in a bidding war over it, and I think I only ultimately paid like 20 or 30 for it. And it's in really good shape, but there's a reason that this is special. It's not just because this, you know, random brochure is hard to find, and it's a thing that had the tick on it, so I needed it for my collection. It has evidence of a thing that I can't find reference for anywhere online. So this shows you all of the stuff in the initial way, including all the Dynamo crap. But this has reference to all of the figure lines and things that were coming out for this, that if you were a retailer you could try to get. So there's the steel box, and the first wave of bigger figures of the, you know, the 6-inch and the little 3.5-inch figures that I mentioned earlier. Maybe they were even like 1.5 or 2, I forget. But then there were a couple of little play sets that they never put out that there's pictures of prototypes for. In the middle of this, and one of them was a city street set that had Deflator Mouse going on a zip line across roofs like he does in the Idea Man episode. Like, whoever put these things together, you know, actually paid attention to the show and seemed to like it. And then there was a whole Dinosaur Neil play set and a little Arthur's Apartment play set. But the Holy Grail thing, and the thing that I would pay real money for if I could ever find the prototype, is there was supposed to be an actual honest-to-God Arthur's Apartment playset.
Wow.
And I have in my hands the only, like, photo reference or mention of it anywhere I've ever been able to find. Like, this was almost a thing. The internet doesn't know about it. It's crazy. And what's so neat about it, and why it's sad that it never came out, is just all of the visual references to things that are actually in the show. So, Geoff, it has the couch that turns into a bed. Like, it's there, and it's awesome. And it has, and this is the reason I'm mentioning this now, the secret message cannon. It has the crime busting tower, and it has the tick signal. All of those things were in this playset.
Wow.
That never happened, never came out. So that prototype exists or existed at one time, and I'm very lucky to have.
It had to have, because that was years before Photoshop.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, so that's a real special thing, and I wanted to share that with you guys. Okay, so let's go ahead and get back into this, shall we? And this was a promotional hat for the Amazon show. There's quite a bit of stuff from the Amazon show that I don't have, especially crazy promotional stuff. Geoff, they made a poncho. Do you remember the poncho joke?
Yes.
Yeah, there's a poncho.
That's awesome.
The first time I ever went to a Comic-Con was when that Amazon show was coming out, and it was plastered over like every wall of the like Toronto Comic Con there.
Oh, Edward, sorry, he didn't get a good enough look at this, and seems to be a Tick fan and actually cares about this. So let me pull this back out real quick. Sorry. Bit a better look. If I had known I was going to do this today, I would have scanned this and shown it to you a little closer. But that's what it looks like. Isn't it lovely? It's a lot like some other playsets that Fox shows put out right around that same time. There was a Daily Bugle playset for the Spider-Man show that I had, and looking at this reminds me of putting that together. It looks like it was a really similar kind of build.
They should have done like an Aunt May playset, and it comes with like a little hospital bed she can go in when she's sick.
Could have done a Mary Jane playset, and there she is waiting for Peter to show up to their date.
Yeah, it's like a bus
every
stop,
single
and it's just her
episode.
waiting
Wearing
for him.
the only outfit she owns with those crazy boots.
Hey, there is that one episode where she's doing that jazzercising thing that I complained about in whatever it was we were watching.
Geoff, you want to scoot up just a little bit?
Yeah.
So that you're not too stretched thin
That's
there.
like the second time we
I
see her in
often
that.
feel
show.
kind of stretched thin.
You feel kind of stretched thin? All right, so we're
Other
going to
times
watch...
I feel like I'm wearing thin.
So anyway, we're gonna watch. We gotta hurry up and get into this episode before before Geoff does too many. I'm gonna say stepdad jokes. I think is where I'm
Yeah,
gonna
they're
go
like a
with
special
Jokes.
type.
that. Okay, Grandpa wore tights. I can't wait to show this to you guys. If anybody hasn't seen this, it's just hysterical. Oh, Geoff, you've got a water bottle right in front of my screen there.
I do.
Thanks, man. All right, here we go. Episode 13 of Season 2. Get ready to press play. We're just about to try to sync up together. Here we go, everybody. Are you ready, Austin?
Mm-hmm.
All right, here we go. Everybody, please press play right now. So this, I think, is hands down the best of the kind of sequel episodes, partly because it is really a direct follow-up to the last time we saw the Terror, and clearly realizes that that was one of the best episodes of the show, and surprisingly comes back and makes almost as good, if not as good, of an episode.
Can we have volume?
I'm not sure why you can't hear it. I've got it.
It's very faint.
Yeah, it's not for me. This thing might be going out too.
Or maybe it's the cable.
Yeah, it could be that too. I've got another pair of headphones down there if you want to try those.
Oh, I'll make it work.
Yeah, sorry, man.
Subtitles.
I'm doing my best.
Oh, it's rated 48.
So another super tightly woven episode, just like the last one, and remembers everything with that. Right away, we've got Joseph Stalin again, but this time a flashback with the actual Joseph Stalin.
Yeah.
This is not the real Joseph Stalin because this is an animated character.
Still looks like a piano.
That's true. Atomic robot zombie men.
It will be the largest secret army in the world.
And apparently that guy
love that
doesn't
line.
age, or at least doesn't age. Well, no, they did try to actually animate him to look younger, didn't they?
Yeah.
But we've had him already in at least one episode before this.
Ants and pants.
Well, actually a couple, because this is right at the end of 2, so you've already had Schmelz and Nougat!
Yeah.
What is his name?
Professor Think.
That's right, I can never remember that one. That is a trivia question that always eludes me.
Not yet.
So you get kind of the Justice Society of the Tick universe here, with characters that are just as absurd, if not more so, than everybody in the present day, and some really great, wonderful running gags. We're kind of waiting to see Living Doll use his power through the entire episode, and that pays off wonderfully by
I
the
always
end.
wondered what those were for.
You've got the opposite thing with Rockets from the Sockets, where he in the flashbacks, has this hilarious power where he can see things from far away by shooting his eyeballs out, but then the elderly man cannot make them go any farther than that much when he shoots them out at the end, and that's also a great payoff. And then you have the leader of this group who is unconscious the entire episode.
The Tick here reminds me of Grimlock in the Transformers movie, where he just really wants to hear Cup's war story.
That's hilarious. Austin, do you remember this episode?
No, I don't offhand. It's been a while since I've watched the show. This is the one that's a parody of the 90s Spider-Man, I don't know, it's got like the wizard in it, right? I can't remember what the episode's. It's like Sins of Fathers Past.
Oh yeah, kind of, and with a similar MacGuffin too with the Desirovac, because in the Spider-Man show you've got. I never thought about that, but yeah, you've got the Tablet of Time, and this is this is kind of a similar sort of MacGuffin.
I think that's a different one. I don't. Think
Oh, okay. Well, maybe it's doing both of those things.
Yeah, maybe.
Down, psychic.
Because this one's not about immortality so much as wealth and getting whatever you want. But they strike me as somewhat similar MacGuffins in that they're both like big doomsday kinds of things that a mastermind would want to get his hands on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because one I'm thinking of is the one with Red Skull and his son Electro.
Okay, yeah. No, I see why you're comparing those.
Yeah, because you got like all the old heroes that kind of come out of retirement.
But we would also have to check the timelines on that because these shows both started around the same time.
Oh, okay.
And so I don't know if that had aired yet, and I don't know if they would have had the time to animate anything that was directly making fun of that show.
Well,
Might have just been whatever's in the air right then.
Group Hypnosis.
I remember.
Because of the water. That's the thing I quote all the time, too. Nobody ever knows what I'm talking about when I do. I remember because of the chocolate. I remember because of the water. AMC reminds me of Frozen Hitler from the Justice League episode, The Strange Time Part 2. I don't know that show well enough to remember that.
There's a Frozen Hitler in Justice League.
Subhuman.
That's
The
awesome.
Subhuman. He's got a submarine on his head, and he lives in a submarine. So I realized that these guys are old and senile, but at some point they have got to figure out what this guy is doing, right? Like
The ray gun.
So this is maybe the funniest pun kind of line in this entire show. One blast turned the whole town into a guy named Ray. And then the follow-up, the payoff to this is one of the funniest things I've ever seen. It's like, that's silly. And then there was the Tommy gun. That's amazing. Like, Geoff, that's one of those jokes where if you don't think that's funny, stop watching the show.
Yeah.
You don't get the show.
You're not
It's
gonna
not
get
for
anything
you.
else.
That's it. Don't bother.
Go back to...
I remember because of the chocolate. Man, this is... Because I know when we do stuff like this, Geoff, you have a hard time helping yourself, not just quoting the whole thing the whole way through. This episode, I can't stop that with this.
I will restrain my every urge.
I'm bad about it with episodes like this. I really love the care in the animation to throw back to Silverine comic look.
Freckles.
The terror looks like actually downright intimidating.
Yeah, in his prime.
And I also like that it's the same voice actor, but, you know, modulating to sound younger.
Covered. Going down.
Obviously, we're going back to serials again with this. But some of the prettiest storyboarding in the show is in these sequences, I think.
I also wonder if his design is partly inspired by Cobra Commander, not the
Oh, yeah.
silver face one.
never
But he's
thought
got
of
the
that.
hood one.
Even for the decency squad.
Yeah, well, and the line that the show manages to, like, there's a lot of stuff that this gets away with that is kind of amazing. Like, even doing the Joseph Stalin jokes. Obviously, there's no way around the Terror's outfit is a black version of the Klan, right? Like,
Yeah.
And he's a World War II villain. Like, they were obviously doing something with that.
Mm-hmm.
But in a kid's show.
Yeah.
Like, it's amazing. This was a show for kids that was not really for kids.
All the best ones.
Let me speak to Handy. Yeah, I mean, for superhero parody, the show is as sophisticated as Batman the Animated Series.
Yeah.
And that's why I love it so much. I put it in that same category. And I think it's sad, Geoff, folks that think the Tick is funny as a concept and love the Warburton show because they found it more accessible, but don't go back to this just because it's a cartoon. It really bugs me. I don't mean to be prudish, but, like, this was a brilliant show and is just not appreciated the way it should be.
America still has an anti-cartoon prejudice.
Which is in some ways going
It's
away
less
more and more.
than it used to be. But
Yeah.
It's not totally gone.
Yeah, and we're still in that like adult comedy animation is the only like mainstream animation.
Okay, so here it comes. This is my favorite Tick line in the entire show. What's that? Postal fraud? It's amazing. He goes, nothing ever happens big. It's all molecule, molecule, molecule. What's that? Postal fraud?
We're on. And 618A.
Now, Austin, I will say it does seem like we do some direct parody
They got the
of...
toothbrushes.
Yep. It does seem like we maybe do some direct parody of animated Batman stuff in this show, because that starts in '92, and they've got time to go back to that, and that was a Fox cartoon, and so like characters, villains breaking out of prison, and like that happened quite a bit in that show, and
Maybe they were looking at Grey Ghost instead, and it just happened to be the 90s
yeah.
Spider-Man thing.
yeah, maybe so. I didn't even think of that. That's some good alliteration there, Geoff.
Yeah.
Geriatric jerk. Edward, America's always had that problem. Creators, though, will still make what they want to, mostly when it comes to comics at least. Well, I mean, that gets sticky, too, especially when you look at the big two, because it's not like there's not censorship and, editorial mandates and things over there, but...
Mm-hmm.
That's why so many creators have gone to create their own stuff at, Image and starting their own companies and all of that. Every medium has this problem to some degree or another.
Well, Marvel's animation's been awful for over a decade at this point.
Yeah, at least.
Mm-hmm.
And
It's going to
DC's
be
just been all
interesting.
over
We
the
have a
map.
bunch of new DC shows coming out, and the animated movies are doing pretty well right now.
Yeah, they're having potentially a renaissance. It's too
Yeah.
early to say that, but there's potential.
Yeah, and I'm interested to see the that Cape Crusader show because Ed Brubaker's the main writer.
Bad. Not badly.
And part of the 19th, I think. That's
Yeah.
just every line of the show. I mean, this episode.
That is the balance. Decency Squad Vault.
I can't watch the I can't watch this episode without flashing back to the Future 3. Just every time.
Cool.
Thomas Lowe, what has Ben Edlund doing these days? Well, for a while it was trying to get the Tick put on a different network. And then since COVID, I imagine he's either trying to spearhead, some other new project or still working on that. I don't know. I haven't heard anything from him in a while.
He'll be hired for the new GCPD, the Batman show.
I'm sorry, say that again.
Said they'll bring him in for the new GCPD show that's like connected to the Batman.
They should, yeah, because he was one of the writers and producer on first season of Gotham, and he jumped ship on that real quick.
I know. I was thinking about that today because it's so bizarre that he was on that show.
Yeah, I don't know why he was involved with that.
And he turned down that stint with Love After Lockup.
I don't know what that means. What are you talking about?
No. Excuse me.
The Mummy Speaks is also a thing that comes up here and there. I want to say 2 or 3 times somebody's watching them.
Yep. That guy's old.
What was so bad about Evil? Daniel Davis, Marvel's always been cheap, but that's mostly because of rights and stuff.
They made that one up.
They made what up?
The cat's galoshes. That was never an
That was never a thing. It sounds like a thing that could have been there, though.
Almost plausible.
I think your first hint should have been that he's wearing a villain costume. I like that he's doing that just to get closer to his dad. Yeah. But, what's even the theme of the costume?
Well, it was an insurance adjuster, so that's pretty evil.
Well, sure, but what's the costume, though, Geoff?
Yeah, that I don't know. And you're not.
I don't even know what to say about this episode. I just want to watch it. But yeah, it's not like he has the letters IA on the front of his shirt. The Ra-Ba-Ba thing was always weird to me because it's strange that he's just picked that up since the last time we saw him. He keeps saying it. Is all those things that he only says to his kid? Yeah. And all growing up, he's like, Ra-Ba-Ba.
You stink.
Later on, Arthur's going to be kind of an idiot when he puts on the Desire-Vac helmet and he says, "Give me those things!" I love the reveal that the antennae are for balance, because it gives further credence to the notion that it's not a costume.
Yeah, he's got eyes all over him.
Which is not a thing that we make as big of a deal out of in this series as some other iterations of the Tick, but it does kind of come up. Yeah. There's a place early on, I think in Idea Men, where he says, "Not a costume, friend." That is definitely a thing in this.
Mm-hmm.
Senior Sticks, did you know, Captain Logan, that the Tick had pockets? Is there a place where he specifically has pockets?
That's weird.
I don't know how he'd get around without them, but I also don't see how he could have them.
Especially if it's not a costume.
You can't have wishes because you don't have your own brain. Well, and Austin, that was always supposed to be ambiguous, where the Tick thinks that, but we don't know anything about his background because he seems partially amnesiac or something.
Mm-hmm. When we first meet him on a bus coming from somewhere, and we don't know where.
Yeah, I remember that in the first episode.
I mean, we know he's sent there from the people who send superheroes places, but we don't know where he came from before that. And then even the Warburton series kind of does it that way, where he's just at a bus station, and he's just been living there for a while. And that wasn't really a magic hubcap. The magic was inside of you all along.
And in the Amazon show, he's like a nightlight.
I don't know what's happening there. And there's a suggestion that somehow he's always been connected to Arthur, going all the way, and we'll never know now. I really want to make it my mission in life to get Edlin to tell me where all that was going. And I don't know that I'll ever get a chance to actually sit down and talk to him, but it would be the best thing I ever did if I could make that happen somehow.
Just email him and be like, "Hey, come on my show. Unfortunately, to be a guest, you also have to mod comments, but
Wait up, fuck!
you can come on and talk about it."
Geoff, I think it's great that we don't keep the read a book thing going through the whole episode.
Yeah.
Where, like, if you're really a big fan of this, you're like, okay, is it coming? where is
Yeah.
it? And then they finally give it to you. They finally pay it off.
Just be a dad once in a while.
Him just becoming progressively smaller people is
Oh, yeah, you are ahead of us.
funny. I think I am a little bit ahead, but that is like one of the funniest things I've seen.
Oh, it's
in
great, yeah. And again, a wonderful payoff, because this whole episode, not yet, doll, not yet. And then you notice when he's finally allowed to do it, his boss is still asleep. Like, if he was still awake, he'd still be like, not yet, doll, not yet.
I'm full of tinier men, too.
Two.
That is so much better. Rip off his other eye.
One thing the show is also really good at
Really into the
is
eyes on this.
like melodrama, still making characters like melodrama and parody wrapped together, but still making characters like more or less sympathetic. So, like, you know, this terror guy in this context is kind of like as sympathetic as it can be, and sort of kind of has an arc, but at the same time we're also just poking fun at like those kinds of relationships in real life.
Yeah.
With fathers and sons that were never able to get along, and, like, you know, horrible human beings who have children, and then those children still want their parents to love them even though they're horrible people. And the joke here is they're both elderly, so, like, the terror is so old that, like, his son has grandchildren and is trying to reconcile while he's in his 70s probably. It's just inherently funny.
Fab.
Yeah, I've never understood why the Desiravac, if you ask it for something really generally, will just give you a lot of it all over yourself. You know, like, give me chocolate for the whole city is gonna be, it's just liquid chocolate streaming down all over.
That was memorable.
Oh my god. Geoff, it never gets old. This is also a show that holds up incredibly well.
It really does.
Maybe it helps that I grew up in the 90s. Like, I don't know if, you know, somebody a lot younger than me watches this now wouldn't see it as more dated than I do, because, like, I lived through this period, but...
They're really careful to avoid, like, building on anything that is tied to a time period.
Yeah.
Like, nothing... Not quite nothing is ever time linked. Like that alarm clock thing, no one has that anymore.
Sure.
But,
and obviously, if the Tick's operating now, he wouldn't have to just watch the news. He could get on the internet, obviously.
TVs wouldn't have rabbit ears at some point in history.
Right.
But, you know, nothing important. You know, nothing that breaks the show.
Yeah. And it's not stylized in the same way as something like Batman Animated Series, where, like, that kind of thing is timeless because the hodgepodge of a lot of different time periods. This really does look like the time it's set in. But you're right, we're not focused on anything really specifically, like... Yeah. I don't know, it doesn't feel 1995 or whatever.
It doesn't have to be that specific year.
Yeah, that's a great point. Okay, we're going to go to an episode that Geoff asked for now. And we're just doing two more, and the rest of tonight are things that Geoff picked, because I did two of mine in a row. So now we're going to do what I think is the second weirdest episode of the show. Only the second weirdest.
Yeah.
And my wife begged me to do the most weird episode of the show, and I was like, I can't do that and Ants and Pants in the same show. I just can't do it. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No.
Do you have a guess?
No.
Sarah's second or third favorite episode of the show is, and by the way, my wife and I are both like equally huge Tick fans. Armless but not harmless.
Oh yeah.
That is weirder than Ants and Pants. Ants and Pants is weird. That one's weirder. Like, when you have an episode with a villain named Venus and a sidekick named Milo, and then your hero's arms fall off, that's freaking weird.
Yeah, that's an episode I skipped.
That's in a category all on its own. Oh, you don't like that one?
Yeah, no. I mean, there are good moments in every episode. There are good moments in that, but
yeah, I know. It's really messed up. It's really weird.
That crosses my line.
But and I don't mean to just talk about that for a long time, but like Maneuver 14B.
Maneuver 14B
is amazing. It's great that for no reason at all we go back to 14B. Plunger Man, and then the whole thing with
14B is like A113.
It kind of is. Yeah, and then the whole thing with American Made's answering machine.
Oh yeah,
American Made is a way toppling a foreign dictatorship.
An unauthorized.
That's what it is. An unauthorized. I guess it would be foreign. An unauthorized dictatorship.
What?
And then they leave the message, and it's Arthur and Tick going, American Made. We lost our arms. We lost our arms. It's great. But I'm with you. I don't know why Sarah likes that episode quite as much as she does.
I need you to break my fall.
Break my fall. What was that line reading? Oh, hey, how do you feel about Evil Sits Down for a Moment?
Well, that's fun. That was close to my list.
Do you like that one? With the Ottoman Empire? Sorry, guys. Give me just a minute. My Hulu has suddenly stalled out on me.
I mean, I'm not sure it quite works, but I really loved that concept.
Yeah. I like a lot of things in it. I think the best bit in that episode is probably the airplane thing with the pilot who's like, and if you look off to your right, you'll see some people fighting with furniture.
Yeah.
It's pretty great. Okay, I'm almost there, guys. Ants and Pants. One of the only episodes with an exclamation point.
That's true.
Oh, you know what? Another really weird episode I don't care for is
that is also true.
That mustache feeling.
Oh, wow, I almost put that on the list.
Really? I don't like that episode. That, Austin, is a direct parody of Nick Fury and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
And Shaft.
And Shaft, yeah. Austin,
oh, weird. Yeah.
How you doing? Oh, you know what? I should have done Heroes.
Oh yeah.
I love Heroes. That's in my top 5. You
So
got
many
evil in your
episodes
town
that
so
make-
bad.
Yeah.
What did you do? Step in a pig?
Like a little lost puppy.
Forget the leg. All my new friends are giving me light bulb related gifts. Anyway, Ants and Pants is, according to Hulu, episode 9 of season 2. Get it at timestamp 0 and get ready to press play when I say now.
Press play.
And Geoff, you take it away with this one, man, because this is your pick, so I want to make sure that you get to say everything you want to say about Ants and Pants. Here we go. Everybody, please press play right now. Okay, so Geoff, you got to pick 3 episodes of 36 episodes, and I gave you first pick.
That's right.
Why, out of all the things you could have picked, did you go for Ants and Pants?
The Therapist.
Oh, yeah.
And
just some head in a water cooler.
Betty.
Queen of the Ants.
And perfect Queen.
Queen of the right. I didn't know you were that big of a fan of this one. I wanted Captain Sanity to be like a recurring thing.
Yeah. That's an opportunity missed. Maybe for season 4.
Yeah. Season 4 was supposed to have a Thrakkerzog episode. bringing him back. It was weird that we never did that again. Because that was kind of a fan favorite thing. He got an action figure real early. I mean, I guess that doesn't say anything. We had freaking Dynamo.
Yeah.
But
Maybe Dynamole's episode was in maybe season 4 was like an arc about Dynamole.
he was the big bad. That's what they should have done in the
retroactively
Warburton
make him the
show.
big bad of
That
the
whole
show.
thing should have been just Dynamo. Because I think he's a comic character, so I think they could have done him there.
Yeah.
I love the vigilant tick on the edge of a building thing. It's great. And the whole monologuing to himself thing is a thing that they really went hog wild with the Warburton show. And one of the things I really like about that show, that they have him doing that all the time.
Yes, I see.
I actually think some of the best writing with those things is in that show, because of course that's still, you know, Edlund stuff. Your toast will never go bare again.
Yeah.
What's that postal oh.
No time to lose. No time, chum.
Edward, thanks so much for being here with us, man. I don't know if that's a name I recognize, and if he's been in any of our streams before us. So hope you had a good time. He says it's getting late there, so he has to go. Yeah, we're having to start these real late these days. Eventually, we'll get back to earlier start times. But I have twin
Shiny,
girls.
pretty things.
I don't think I ever noticed that storefront before.
Oh.
That's so good. It's a jewelry store called Shiny Pretty Things.
Heisted.
Okay, so I forget his name, but the actor voicing the French guy who owns the jewelry store is just the worst possible choice for a French guy. Because he's all over the show as multiple characters, and he usually plays like, you know, big, beefy, you know, strong guy types. and he has a really distinct voice, you can always tell it's him.
Stop being bad. Isn't that the same guy that
Oh, it's a Jawa.
Wait until you find out what it actually is. I'm sorry, what, Jeff?
Isn't that the same guy that was in Guardians, like the shop owner that was supposed to buy the
No.
oh, clientele expects this. Okay, yes, I did love that scene far too much.
No, you're in good company. Austin's obsessed with that movie.
With what movie, sir?
Guardians.
Dabbling.
Oh, yeah.
He's talking about the scene with the store owner that Yondu's making fun of.
Oh, yeah.
He's like, boobly, boobly, boobly.
No, I love both of those movies.
So Tick has a phobia, he thinks. And then when we get in the end of the episode, we'll realize that it's just such a weird thing to happen to you that he thinks he has a phobia.
Ark is getting dried. Ooh, the city limits.
I think that should say the city limits.
Oh, there's some weird looking raccoons right there.
Yeah. They're like some hybrid ones.
So I love the idea that there's so
I had
many.
a coupon.
I love the idea that there's so many superheroes in this town that you can have a sanatorium just for them. And of course, that's great word choice as well.
Yeah.
At the same time as I really want to know this guy's backstory, I love that we don't have a backstory for this guy. What happened to him? I have a guess, Austin. My guess is that... Oh, actually, this isn't a show you really know. My guess is that the same thing happened to him that happened to Baxter Stockman in the 2003 Ninja Turtle series, where he was like a henchman for a villain that every time he did something wrong, just started lopping off his body parts. And that's why he's just a head in a water cooler. That happens in that show.
That's
Talk about
nuts.
stuff kids shows get away with. Yeah, that was nuts. So, is this the only other time that she's driving around in the croissant truck?
I think it is.
Again, really nice bits of continuity. That's from Chairface in the first season. Darn right. Geoff picked this episode almost exclusively for Taft. We love Taft. And Taft returns one more time.
I mean, I can dig
That
it.
mustache
In that
feeling.
mustache feeling.
Achilles heel.
I'm finding myself drawing parallels that I haven't before, Geoff, to the Protoclown episode.
Yeah.
I can't look at this when the music plays. It's too good.
It's amazing.
Oh my god.
Because it's
Setting the lights on and off.
because Geoff, it's another one of those episodes where like the Tick is having to kind of go up against you know, his own psyche and realize he's kind of a blank slate and there's nothing there.
Tick must face his own demon.
But then when you get to the end of the episode, we undercut the whole thing where he actually really had nothing to learn in the first place. It's exactly the same thing as the Protoclown thing, where it's like, oh, why am I here? 'Cause a big clown hit me. There's nothing deep about it. And then the end of this is going to be, why am I here with ant phobia? Oh, I don't have an ant phobia. He'll say, it's just when they all come running out of a lady's pants like that. Like, it's actually the same anti-arc, isn't it?
Yeah, the only difference is that one had a
Its
clown,
crown
while this
is
one had
upside down.
Shaft dressed as a giant ant, while a head in a jar is like, yes.
I'm
yes!
getting
Background.
I'm getting ahead of everything, but just wait until he goes, I'm your mother, man. That's my favorite Taft bit. And Fishboy, Lost Prince of Atlantis. This is his only other appearance, so we've watched both of those now.
He's voiced by the same actor as somebody else.
Well, that's Deflator Mouse again.
That's right.
And so they're talking to each other right now. It's the same voice actor talking to himself. What's kind of weird is
Definitely in the Logie bin.
you've got a four-legged man who has a very...
How deep is that pool?
You have a four-legged man who has a very similar voice to Deflator Mouse, but of course is, like I said earlier, an analog to Mr. Fantastic. And then in the Fantastic Four show that was on around the same time, and in the Spider-Man crossover, the guy who voices Deflator Mouse voices Mr. Fantastic, and I've never been able to deal with that. Like, I can't take him seriously because it's just Deflator Mouse is Mr. Fantastic.
Oh, weird.
Hey, it's Taft.
It's just looking at him. Also, Geoff, they need to quit using that angle because I can't of the City Hall because I can't see it without a spider tank on top of it.
Yeah.
This has been an interesting order to watch these episodes in, because like I'm picking up on things that I don't usually just because of what I've got in my head right now.
The Department of Sanitation, which we will later have an episode about.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, with a disgruntled employee who takes over the underground.
Lou Salazar, Sewer Czar.
You know what's weird? That there's no mention of the Mole Men in that episode, and that it's not a follow-up to that anyway, because it really could have been. I don't like that episode, so I'm kind of glad that it's not, but it is sort of weird that they do with the whole thing about, like, you know, the world of the subterranean, and we never bring up the Mole Men? I'm talking about the Tick versus Filth.
What does it mean to come from filth anyway?
Why can't we go to the Bahamas? He's just eating ice cream. We come from filth, we're going to filth. We're filth. One complaint I've always had about the show is dropping the naming convention. Because every episode of the first season is the Tick versus. And then later we start getting more creative with episode titles, which would be okay if we drop the Tick versus thing entirely, I guess. But occasionally we'll come back and use it again. But it never uses the article adjective after that. It's never the Tick versus. It's just Tick versus. And there is an anal part of my brain that drives insane. I hate it.
You're not my mom.
You're Taft. Here in a minute, he's gonna say, "Lose the Fish Prince." Oh, he's back.
Sanitation and Captain Sanity.
So we've got Professor. What's his face again?
Professor Think.
Think. I still can't do it.
Dr. Strangelove.
Yep.
He's got worse ice cream hair than Gordon does.
Yeah.
Well, that's true, but that's what Dr. Strangelove looks like. Okay, so the police guy is gonna eat the nitroglycerin laden candy bar. But what's ridiculous at first glance is the idea that they would lace the small one with nitroglycerin just because it's a model, and then you think, wait a minute, but that professor is insane. He probably did put nitroglycerin in that. It's laced with nitroglycerin.
The subtitles credit the police chief as Doodlehead.
That is his name, and he's referred to that way by Blank at least one time.
Does he?
Yes.
I never remembered that.
He does say something Doodlehead, yeah. I would not have remembered that right off if you hadn't said it out loud, but he does call him that.
Wow. Very nice.
This is a really amusing revenge premise.
Yeah.
You do sort of have to wonder, like, why this particular ant colony in this particular city?
Yeah.
Why has this never happened before?
Well, that's why
See,
there's
I think
only
the
one
Queen of
city
the Ants
left.
got bitten by a radioactive.
But there's not. We go to other cities in this show, Austin.
Yeah.
Group hypnosis.
Oh. I mean, like, there's a city
See,
and
the ants are like the Borg.
there's a city and a whole, like, continent mentioned in episode titles in this show.
Yeah. Wonder what the ants in Deer Town are like. Therapeutic modality.
And that's one of the greatest lines in anything ever. Sanity, you're a madman. No peeking. But yeah, I'm trying to remember the episode and the context of it, but there's a bit where Sally Vacuum mentions Deer Town, where she says Lirma and then Deer Town.
Yeah, we saw it.
Oh, that's right. It's we did just have that, didn't we? That's at the beginning of bank account. Yeah.
Moscow, Lima, Deer Town.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah, reign of terror. I really appreciate that it's a red phone.
Yeah.
I like make sure to evacuate your voters.
Yep.
I'm okay.
It's pretty great. The satire in the show is always on point. Thomas Lowe, something genetic engineering.
Yeah.
That's I don't even care what the context of that statement is. That's
That
always
should be
the
the
answer
tagline for the new Jurassic
in
Park.
comic things. It should be on all the posters. Something genetic engineering. What are you pointing at? You're like,
Yeah.
you're pointing like down here. Like,
Well,
did you notice
I mean,
that?
it's like
Yeah.
8 billion
She was like
ants
this.
trying to work it. So
Sorry, what?
So there's like 8 billion ants trying to work it. So they're not always working together to do the right thing.
Okay, but just wait until you
That's
see the
painful.
intricate insanity they're able to pull off at the end when they all come together to make one giant ant.
Yeah, that's another Guardians of the Galaxy moment.
What, when they all come together to make one giant ant? That doesn't happen.
At
in
the
that
end when
movie.
No, it's
he's
in
fighting
3.
Ego and
It's in the
Oh,
trailer.
Guardians 2. Oh, that's true. I wasn't even thinking of that.
that is also true.
People farm. And this is where we get that great
Ego is
nervous
the
breakdown
best.
from Arthur, where he just suddenly snaps at Surershin and says, "Not everything's definite," you know.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. That's what it takes to really break Arthur.
Yeah.
Splendid and perfect.
Perfect.
Taken Spear, Austin. Something genetic engineering finds a way.
Exactly. That's what Jeff Goldblum will say at a random hearing that he appears in in the new one.
No, he's gonna do more than that in that movie.
No, I know, but I just love.
We've already seen the
trailer that
screenshots where he's
that it
standing
cuts to
in
him.
similar places as he stood before.
No, I think that's why he shows up at the end with like the other two returning cast members, where they're like scared of a T-Rex or whatever, just to be like, don't worry, he will do more.
Where was he at the Mad Science Convention?
Yeah, boy, he should have been all over that.
Yeah. And there's only one other there's only one other appearance I can think of with him. Do you know what it is?
Dinosaur Neil.
Yep. Well, yeah, but there's another one besides that.
Dinosaur Neil, this one. The Grandpa wore tights.
Yep. And then Reno, Nevada,
Oh.
because he makes the giant pants.
No, the pants was for Dinosaur Neil.
Oh, the pants was for Dinosaur Neil. That's true. No, you're right. Sorry, that's what I was thinking about. I thought that was another thing. Nope, you're right. That's what it was. I was conflating the jumping into a pair of pants on fire. That's yeah. Well, I'm rusty.
The general's voice there sounded like a perfect mix between Tommy Lee Jones and Two-Face in the animated series. Very strange mix.
I feel like there's a reference to Sanity again somewhere, but I cannot put my finger on it. I don't think we ever see him again. But he's not a superhero. Do you have to be a superhero to get mental help from?
Well, no, he has powers.
The mayor?
Yeah.
Maybe he is a superhero. We just never knew.
His powers are politics.
I really appreciate that you referenced that. That's one of my favorite things that ever happened in a movie theater. Nobody knows what I'm talking about right now, but that's fine.
I did.
Is that what you're talking about? I'll mention it real quick, Jeff. There's a suggestion in X-Men: Days of Future Past that JFK was a mutant.
Oh.
And it's kind of great. And in the theater, I'm giddy when that line comes up, and I under my breath I'm just like, God, what was it? What was his superpower? Like, it was weird that they would drop that. There's never any talk about what JFK's superpower is. And then the guy sitting next to me, who I don't know at all, just leans over. I'm afraid he's mad at me for talking during the movie, right? He just leans over. He goes, "Politics." And I thought that was spectacular.
It would have been even funnier though if he leaned in and was
Only
like,
Marilyn
"That's
knows."
it, buddy. Meet me out back after the film."
It wasn't Night Invulnerability, that's for sure. I'm sorry. What were you saying, Austin? Too soon? Sorry. What, Austin?
It would have been funnier if you said that one thing and then he leaned up to you and went, "That's it, buddy. After the show, meet me out back."
I love it every time the Tick says that. See, in my mind, Tick's got a lot more catchphrases than just the spoon thing.
I'm waiting for him to. I was always waiting for him to come up with, "I've about had it up to here with you."
Yeah. A lot of things in my vocabulary that I don't hear anybody else say because I got them from this show. Wicked Slick, I go to a lot.
That's a Boston thing.
I love that he goes from being
riding the ant down there.
I love that he goes from being horrified of the ants to this is the greatest experience of his life. That's great.
Another Strangelove reference.
Having your hero swimming in ants is a very strange image.
So riding the ant and it's falling.
I'll never
like
understand
DuckTales
how
with
he
the
knows
gold.
which ant to grab, how he can find it. I mean, it's an ant in an ant stack. I don't know how he pulls it out like that. He's like, and I know I have the right one. I don't understand that.
Whoa. Do you think all ants look alike?
I mean, the way they're animated here, like.
Oh, it's the animators.
Yeah,
fault.
they're the ant racist ones.
Yeah.
He's shaking it.
They're anti-racist.
My head just
Yeah,
exploded. I don't even know what that means.
What do you prefer, the little ant in the jar there, or the gorilla grodd in a jar that we saw in that Legends of Tomorrow episode?
Okay, I've been trying to excise that from my memory and not just that moment, but that whole evening. Like,
That was the only good part.
Yeah, that made me want to quit doing blind commentaries altogether. Boy, that was an experiment that went real wrong. I'll never get the brain cells back from that.
What?
It was pain. Just Legends of Tomorrow as a show. It was painful.
Is that worse than Days of Future Past?
Days of Future Past is great. What are you talking about?
Okay. Then the answer is yes.
Well, yeah, it is, because Days of Future Past is really good.
If that episode was what I wanted it to be, it would have been better than Days of Future Past. I'll go that far.
If your name is Austin. All right.
Well, it is. So.
We're gonna go. Oh, okay, sure. Mine's not. So we're gonna go on now to just 2 episodes after that, according to Hulu. It's episode 11 of season 2, and it's the Tick versus the Big Nothing. This is another episode that I didn't pick, or that I probably expected Geoff to pick and didn't think I would have to. This is my wife's favorite episode of this whole show, and she would have disowned us all if we hadn't picked this one. Not that she's watching this, but everybody's calling me a racist.
They always have a way to find out.
That's true.
That is
Wait,
true.
they? You mean wives or women's? You sexist? You
women,
anti-sexist? I don't know what it means.
Did you just call him sexy?
This is a weird dynamic we've got going on, where we've got like inside jokes coming from over here that nobody's gonna know, inside jokes coming from Austin that nobody's gonna know. The difference
Hey,
is,
it's a Red Letter Media joke. That's pretty known.
well, I suppose, but Geoff doesn't know that stuff.
That's true.
Anyway,
That is also true.
that's also true.
I like that the first.
You're
time
supposed
that
to use
came
your
up, he did it
sarcastic
in-
voice.
What was this one? Oh, now I feel foolish.
Now I feel foolish. Hey, Austin, show us all your T-shirt. That's hilarious.
Oh, H is for Halloween. My sister got me this for for Christmas.
Look, my oldest son is on your shirt.
Yeah, well, she got me 2.
Oh, no, I'm
Halloween
sorry. My
shirts.
youngest son is on your shirt. That's not
Uh,
Jason, that's Michael. What the heck am I smoking?
She got me this one, and then
You may
one
be
of
onto
you know the
something.
part where Lori looks outside and it's like Michael in the yard and he's like in between the sheets.
Yes.
The other one was that image and it said "Freak in the sheets, killer on the streets."
Wow! That's dumb.
Ouch.
Have you ever played or seen any gameplay footage, Austin, of the Michael Jackson game on the Sega Genesis, Moonwalker?
I've seen a little bit, yeah.
Where you have to rescue little kids, and every time you rescue, and they all look the same. They're all these little girls, and you rescue one, and they just go, Michael! I want to go back and do an edit of the first Halloween, where like whenever Michael Myers like comes up behind somebody, you just hear Michael. I just thought of that. I want to do that now.
That's for the Moonwalker game, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because
And
a lot of
live
people
cereal.
make like edits of that. Have you ever seen the one where it's that Michael Myers, Michael Jackson sprite, and it's him clearing like a Mario level? It's pretty good.
I've played the actual arcade game now because the Genesis game is based on that, but it's like really watered down. It's not the same kind of thing because it's just straight up beat 'em up in the arcade.
Mm-hmm.
That is a trippy, bizarre game. It's really cool looking, but it's really
So it's
strange.
a trippy, bizarre movie.
Does he have mini-me?
No, but he can turn into a robot.
Yeah, because that's how that
Here's
movie
hoping
ends.
you
I don't know
don't
if you ever
become a
watched
robot.
it.
No, I
But if
haven't. He actually turns into a robot in the
No,
movie.
he turns into a transformer and starts killing everyone.
That's your special clear the screen move in that game.
Yeah, no, because he's like a giant robot, Michael Jackson, and then I think he transforms into a plane and then he flies away.
That sounds like perfect blind commentary material for Patreon.
No, that movie's nuts.
We
I
should
would
totally
love to
do that.
Plus, it's got like there's a part where it just stops to be the entire music video of Smooth Criminal. It's awesome.
Oh, you mean like that part in UHF where it just turns into a
Yeah,
music
'cause the
video?
Smooth Criminal music video is just like a piece of that movie, and they just took it out. It's awesome.
Nice.
I have seen set photos now of Ratcliffe as Weird Al, and it looks fantastic. I'm so excited about it.
Oh yeah, that's gonna be interesting.
He looks great. Yeah, I know. My head exploded when the announcement happened, and now there's set photos, and like there's so much superhero stuff going on that people would expect that I would be really super excited about. Nothing besides maybe the Batman. Nothing more than the Daniel Radcliffe Weird Al biopic.
You know what would make you'd be more excited for though?
What's that?
Is if the Batman's after credit scene is Daniel Radcliffe, Weird Al walking in and being like, "You think you're the only one that's weird in Gotham?"
He just starts playing Another One Rides the Bus for Batman.
Yeah, and then you'd get the Batman versus Weird.
I thought he'd do like one of those interviews that he used to do on this MTV show. Where
Yeah, where they're not
the
actually there.
clips.
Yeah, exactly. It'd be awesome.
All right, let's go ahead and watch this last episode for the evening. This is another weird episode, but it's wonderful, and it's really good science fiction parody all across the board. It's the Tick versus I hate it so much. Tick versus the Big Nothing. It's episode 11 of season 2 according to Hulu, and make sure at timestamp 0 we're gonna get started right away. Austin, you good?
Yep.
Everybody-
My video even says the Tick versus the Big Nothing.
Oh, because that is incorrect. That is not what the actual episode title is, even though it should be. Everybody, please press play right now.
The shot of him where he like comes forward and like hits the building always reminds me of the one Spider-Man intro where he like jumps and like lands in front of the camera
Oh, yeah.
in the 90s show.
This must have had a lot of the same animators from that show.
I really think this is the same as the season 1 intro.
It is. It changes. You know what? Maybe it doesn't change until 3.
Maybe that's it.
Maybe that's what it is. Or it's possible Hulu's just using the wrong intro all the way through. I haven't looked at any season 3 on Hulu, so I don't know if they switched to the right intro or not. But I've had that problem with certain streaming services where they didn't actually put in the right intro, or where
Yeah, we had that with Spider-Man when we did the Secret Wars.
It did,
arc.
and Amazon used to have this when it had Batman the Animated Series, where we would play intro roulette, where you never knew which intro you were gonna get, and it was random through the whole show.
That's bizarre.
Yeah,
Oh, the
That's
moon still has
unfortunate.
Claw on it.
it does.
Even in this lead-in.
You know, it's great. You can't see the bite taken out of it, but you can see it there. Like, we must just be close enough.
You
You wouldn't
actually
see it.
did see
Oh,
it.
oh, could you really?
Yeah.
I missed it. So I think it's important to keep in mind just how huge X-Files was when this airs.
Oh my god.
And also that it's the same network.
Zap.
Because, I mean, this would have been not, around the same time as
Okay.
The Simpsons did its X-Files parody. And I'm not saying that this whole thing is an X-Files parody, but it is opening this way to immediately evoke.
Well, and that's just straight
That.
up a crossover.
Yep. Yeah, that's true. Because those characters just walk in.
hmm That episode always freaked me out as a kid.
Kind of like the way they just do a straight-up Cops crossover in X-Files.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, there's a whole episode that is just an episode of Cops that is
Weird.
shot just like that show.
Lucky. I'm being
It's hilarious. That is one of those, like, we're clearly out of ideas and just want to do something different, but it's pretty fun.
I gotta get back to that show. It's been a while since I've
You
watched
were
it.
watching through one. I don't know if you ever
Yeah.
got past one, but
No, I was still on one, but I was enjoying it.
I'll
I
watch some of
gotta
that
get
with
back.
you. It's been a while since I've done it. We could do a marathon of that at some point. That might be fun.
Will you be
that'd
watching
be
it with
cool.
the lights on?
Yes.
I don't know
Well,
if I'm brave enough
about
for
like
that.
this, really. You got to have at least one so people can see you.
I'm perfectly okay being pitch black.
I'm really glad I've got the kind of setup that I've got now, because it used to be really hard to figure out how to light a commentary, where like you could see what you're watching, but the audience could see you. It's a while before I figured that out. My elbow. Austin, do you remember anything about this episode?
I don't. That was some Norm Macdonald delivery.
Because I'm excited to
What?
see your response to some of the things that are about to happen in this. This will take you on a roller coaster of absurdity.
Yeah, I'm starting to wonder. I thought I watched both the first 2 seasons, but I don't remember any of these season 2 episodes.
You
so
may
now
have
I'm
only
wondering
seen
if maybe
one,
I
then.
didn't watch season 2.
Yeah. This has a lot of my favorite stuff in it, too. The whole it's where you keep all your stuff thing is one of my favorite bits in this whole show. Come on, man, it's just a sandwich. That's a big line for me.
All Earth languages.
Even
Except, of
Esperanto.
course, Esperanto.
You can tell that was going nowhere fast. Yeah, this is another one of those where like I don't know how to talk about this episode without just quoting it.
There's really not much to add.
Daniel Davis, both programs are Saban. Yeah, good call. And I was kind of forget that this was a Saban property, but that's got to be why the figures went to Bandai.
Hug with a capital hug.
So this also goes to Hitchhiker Places real quick. A lot of the really goofy space logic is very Douglas Adams in this.
Yeah.
Particularly when you get to the fear drive,
Yeah.
because that's a lot like the improbability drive and the lint thing and all that.
Hey.
In fact, Geoff, I think a lot of the really silly logic in this episode goes to some of the weirder, like, post-first book Hitchhiker kind of places. Like, we get pretty close to you fly by throwing yourself at the ground and missing.
Yeah.
That feels like a thing that can happen in this show.
I'm thinking Edlund was definitely hip to the Hitchhiker.
Had to have been. And now it's gone. It's where you keep all your stuff.
And now.
Again, wonderful sense of continuity. That's going back to Pineapple Pokepo.
You're gone.
I think that episode.
Yeah.
Isn't that the last time that he says that, or is it something else where he says no? What am I talking about? It's Alone Together.
Yeah.
It's where I keep all my stuff. You can't eat the Earth. It's where I keep all my stuff. Which is also kind of a nice bit of continuity because those are both existential threats from space.
Now this and Pineapple have in common boring slideshow.
And that's why I was connecting them. Yep, slideshow boring, losing consciousness. Yep.
Fading.
And do you agree with this, Geoff? Things like that in this show feel like intelligent connections and callbacks before they feel like repeating jokes because we're out of ideas.
Absolutely.
And consistency.
And it's because they don't beat you in the face with them. They, it doesn't have that. You liked this before. You'll like it again.
Yeah, well, because if it did that, you'd have Spoon every episode, and it doesn't do that. I mean, you could count on one hand the number of times he says that in the show, which is why I think it's weird it caught on as hard as it did.
Every episode, a spoon, and then the laugh track.
Hey, look, like with all the qualms that you've got with the Warburton show, at least it didn't have a laugh track.
Very true.
Because it was a bona fide sitcom.
Yeah.
I think one
wasn't
of the
sure
reasons
if it did or didn't.
Not funny enough.
I think one of the reasons on first viewing through that show, I was kind of disappointed with the sitcom format. Was I don't think you can tell from the pilot that that's exactly what it's supposed to be. There's too much action in that pilot for me to know that I'm watching a sitcom. And then after that, everything is between the raindrops, what's happening when we're not fighting crime, and I'm like, that's not the pilot you made. Like.
Yeah.
And so once I adjusted to that, I came to appreciate that show a lot more.
What?
But it's got more honest to God duds than this, and it's only 9 episodes.
Yep.
That's unfortunate.
Because again, even the episodes that I kind of, in relation to the rest of the show, don't care for, are still really great compared to other not as good shows, right? Like, yeah,
Well, that is true.
everything's relative. Everything's a matter of perspective. So like,
That's very Jedi.
So like a show that I would give, you know, like a 1.5 or a 2 out of 4 in this show, compared to other things, probably gets a 3 or a 3.5. Like, that's how good the show is. This is how memory works, you guys.
Yeah.
Like, it's physical and corporeal, and you can just push it right back
Fluid,
in.
and you just come through a hose. You put it in a pensieve, and then you can.
Wow. I don't know that in 13 years
Pollo asada.
a pensieve has ever been said on this show.
Not since we did the series. We're gonna save the universe.
It's gonna be boss. I say boss a lot. That comes from this.
I think that may also be a Boston thing. This Billo.
Is Edlin from Boston?
Well, I think it's called New England Press.
Oh yeah, that's true. I mean, I knew it was around there.
I mean, maybe not Boston necessarily, but that's the region. What is it?
It's hilarious how they get away with just not animating Arthur's face in that
Yeah.
shot. What is it?
There was that moon again.
Yeah, in the one Terror episode, there's a part where he laughs, but they just have him like vibrate. His animation. It's great.
The Infinity Ball is another really Douglas Adamsy kind of joke.
Specifically, that's this thing.
But it's
I
also
could picture
really
in
Edlin, too.
an episode of Doctor Who from the period when Douglas Adams was script editing for them.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And
I'm sure Tom Baker fought that at some point.
and there's such a and there's such a wonderful payoff to that as a joke, because it's already a great visual reference, and you could overstate it and make it not funny, but then the place where the episode decides to overstate it, it makes it funnier, and it shouldn't work, but it does. And I'll go ahead and mention it now in case we talk over it, but like the joke is already funny. We've taken an 8 and we've turned it sideways and we call it Infinity Ball, and then later Tick's gonna go, yeah, we got higher numbers too. It makes it so much funnier.
It wasn't Tom Baker. Peter Davison's Doctor actually did have an episode where there was a thing like the Infinity Ball.
Really?
Spied on everybody.
That's great. It probably made it sound like that too.
I think
Like,
I hate this guy. This Marty Beller mask.
and the and the Hayes and Watts is also a super classic kind of idea that's real ageless.
You guys are tough.
When I show people this show that have never seen it, the episodes I tend to go to first are Thrakkerzog. He says that 2 times in this episode, and I don't understand that. It feels like it couldn't have been in the script twice. It feels like for some reason we're like, we need a line here, so we just have him say it again. It's weird.
Was that computer animation for like just a second?
Yes.
Just for a moment.
That was
Which-
very weird.
It is weird, and it's that Spider-Man animated series thing.
Yeah.
Because they do that a
I
lot
didn't
in
know
that show.
The show did
But
that.
this
so
It looked
only
equally
does
terrible.
it in this episode. It never happens again.
Oh, really? That's even
No,
weirder.
It's just here. It's like because we're in space for some reason. We got to do 3D
He's an
animation.
anxious little dude.
I don't know why. I was talking about something. I don't remember what.
Because the matte
It's
painting
kind
of
of like
stars.
a Futurama thing, I guess. That also uses computer animation for space.
Oh, but yeah. So the episodes I tend to show people first are
It was the 90s. Computers were new then.
Uncommon Cold with Rackerzog, Breadmaster, and this episode. And when I show new people this episode, the thing they tend to latch onto is the hey what response thing. That it's just like inherently funny to hear somebody go hey and somebody respond with what, and just over and over again. It's always funny. Girls, yep. I love in this scene how we're kind of exploring how fear works
Yeah.
in this really weird way.
So this is also Inside Out.
Like I just can't get my mind around it. It's too big.
That guy comes in.
That's like a perfect encapsulation of Arthur's mentality.
Yeah.
I also like the bit here in a minute where there it is. It's just a sandwich. The timing of that. Yeah, I think some of the most sophisticated humor is in this episode. I like the bit here in a little bit where he'll go, "Come on, man, freak out!"
Yeah.
Geoff, this beat in the score here is some of my favorite jazz music in this whole show.
That spaceship looks pretty familiar too. Oh yeah.
Freak out!
Yeah.
Here it comes, Austin. Here comes the greatest piece of technology ever in a space thing.
Excuse me.
Ben Edlund just really likes lint, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah, good call. Well, and I went back to this in my mind immediately when she was introduced, and I was like, God, there's certain things he's really obsessed with. Like, he thinks cows and horses are always funny when they're standing around with human beings, and he thinks lint is an inherently amusing concept.
Yeah, because that's a big part of that character is that she's always covered in lint, and
Yep.
like that's part of her name.
Well, and I love how that explores the drawbacks of superpowers.
Mm-hmm.
Where, like, sometimes it's a boon and sometimes it's a curse.
She's zapping herself on that car door.
Yeah. I don't like what's done with her as well in the second season, but
I don't even remember what she does in the second season.
they
I
do
haven't seen it.
they do the really predictable thing.
Oh, she's like, she joins like the hero team. or
Yeah, they
whatever,
kind of
like,
turn
yeah.
her around, and you figure that's where they'd go with it.
That's right. That's right.
And this is the kind of ridiculously convenient stuff that I can get behind in a comedy like this, where you just happen to have a race of people that all look like Arthur. Especially because we don't waste the idea. You can't do this and not put Tick in an Arthur suit. And we're going to do that, and it's insane, and I love it. Also, language is made up of a single word is also always funny.
It's kind of like it reminds me of the Planet Express ship.
Yeah, except this predates that.
Yeah.
It's a little bit like that, but it's not as angular.
Futurama's come up quite a bit tonight, though.
Yeah. There it is. That's an action figure I needed that we never got.
Let's just go.
What if that version of the Tick had a I Heart Weed shirt?
Yeah, it is really sad that they'd already stopped making figures by this point. Even sadder, though, is that the Amazon show didn't get a line, because that show was super toyetic.
Yeah.
And I will never stop complaining about not having merchandise for that show. Like, it sucks that the Warburton show got figures and that didn't.
Yeah, it seems like a lot of those streaming shows don't really get a lot of merchandising.
Yeah.
That's
like
why they don't make enough money.
We've kind of moved away from some of that. Well,
They
some
put
of
in the effort.
well, some of it is that the model just doesn't require it as much. You know, like
Oh, yeah.
you're not selling tickets and you're not selling advertising. So like the model is just so different that you don't need butts and seats in exactly the same way.
Pull
Yeah.
myself together.
Have I ever told you about the Marvel Legends Netflix line?
I know. I mean, I know that they had
Black
that.
hole.
Yeah, so they did a Build-A-Figure wave with Man-Thing was the Build-A-Figure.
Oh, you did tell me about that, which is weird
Yeah.
because he's not even in any of those shows. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was Jessica Jones, Daredevil, Elektra, Punisher, and then the Spike TV Blade.
Yeah, you did tell me about that. Yeah, that's so weird.
It sounds like a pool ball in the lands.
Yeah, it's great. I've never really understood why it doesn't do anything. Like it's funny, but I don't get it. that always did seem like a thing that didn't quite work.
Which turned out to be pretty oblivious.
But Tick's logic for how he can prove that all this happened is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, this just turned into the ending of Army of Darkness.
I haven't seen that in a long time.
That movie's awesome.
That's the only one of those I've ever seen all the way through.
Oh, really? We
Yeah.
gotta watch Evil Dead 2 at some point. That movie's awesome.
I just
of this?
really like the skeletons.
Oh, for sure.
See, that's his logic.
Yeah.
We're all still here, right? And then Deflator Mouse responds, well, I guess we owe you one. And then we got to reference that painting every time.
Yeah.
Which is a comic book thing.
Ben's Diner, it says.
Yep. I guess it never even occurred to me that that's what the diner was called. Because I always just referred to it as the diner.
Yeah.
But it's nice that they've got a reference to him in his show.
That's what I said after December, whatever, 2012, when the world was supposed to blow up. The next day I saw my classes. I said, well, as you'll notice, the world is still here. You're welcome.
Well, we're all still here, aren't we? That's great. Well, this was super fun, and I'm really glad that Geoff was able to make it. Thanks for being here, man.
Thank you.
And Austin, I hope you had a good time, man.
I did, yeah.
You didn't
That was
talk a
great.
lot. We watched a lot of episodes you don't know.
Yeah, no, I was mostly enjoying it.
The parts where he wasn't was when we were talking.
Yeah, that was when I wanted to die.
Well, that was pretty much all of it, though.
Oh.
Yeah.
Next Friday night, Austin and I are continuing our series on video game movies, and we're gonna do so third episode of Video Game Movie Mania. And what is it next time, Austin? It's
Last Starfighter.
Yeah, Last Starfighter. So join us for that next week. And I'll be back streaming again tomorrow evening with something I've never done before. I'm going to be doing an art stream with Ty, who is my artist on Spawnville, and he's going to make his first appearance on the channel tomorrow night. He's going to be doing some drawing for us while I'm going to be painting some Power Rangers figures, the closest thing to art that I do. And he's going to be designing a Captain Logan Power Rangers. So pop in and hang out with us, and we'll just do some general discussion and some Q&A and stuff like that. It'll be a real kind of leisurely stream. And then let me also mention that on Sunday, I'm going to be over on DJ's channel, The Welder. He's starting a series interviewing people who collect things, and he's starting with me, and we're going to talk about apparently just collecting in general and my own personal quirky collecting habits. And I'll leave a link to his channel when that whole thing happens, and to the stream. These are all things that will be live streamed. And then next week is The Batman, and I'll be reviewing that the following Sunday. So lots and lots and lots of things to look forward to here on Geekvolution. And Geoff, I hope you come back again real soon.
I hope so. If I live.
It's like, did you just threaten yourself? I don't even know what that was. We'll
it was
see you
better
guys.
for me because I got it